Welcome everyone to the 106th annual meeting of the California Avocado Society. Last year, I believe we had 16 different time zones logged into this meeting. So to those, I'd like to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good tomorrow. I welcome you all from around the world. We're thrilled to have you here. We have an excellent program plan today. You're going to be, I'm really excited about it. And one of the things that's important is that this organization is over 100 years old. And the only reason that we've made it 100 years is because of our members. And I want to thank the members for being due supporters of this. There are people that are online that are not members. And I'm going to constantly ask you to sign up today. But I really appreciate you all. Today we brought together a group of experts. Two of our presenters are originally from Chile. Another is originally from New Zealand. And we have some local Californians. So we've got a broad agenda today, a lot of things to cover, and I'm going to try to keep it moving. But before I do anything, I need to thank our sponsors that are sponsoring today's meeting. In alphabetical order, it's Avotopia, AGQ Labs, Brokaw Nursery, CNM Nursery, Farm Credit West, Henry Avocado, McDaniel Fruit Company, Westbridge Agricultural Products, Wilbur Ellis, Wide Eye, and Yara North America. These sponsors cover all the expenses for this meeting. So we have overhead for drone shots. We had to buy a license for Zoom. We just want to thank you all for sponsoring us. Your generous support keeps the society going, hopefully at least another 100 years. We have a little bit of business I have to cover. The board of directors is having an election for officers on December 2nd. If you want to know more about this meeting, go to our website. And again, you're going to hear me talk about our website a lot today. It's CaliforniaAvocadosociety.org. At that website, we'll tell you where the meeting's going to be. Hopefully, we're going to have it at the Huntington if they are open. Otherwise, it'll be a Zoom meeting. All members can come online anytime and voice concerns, questions. We also have recently completed our printed copy of the annual yearbook. As you know, we went digital for our quarterlies, and there was a large number of growers that wanted a printed copy of the yearbook. So we have now got a link on our website to go to, and you can buy this book to add it to your collection. And it's beautiful. It's an excellent book, and it'll be a nice part of your collection. Again, I said I'm going to talk about this quite a bit. You're going to want to go to the CaliforniaAvocadosociety.org website. When you type that in, the first thing that's going to pop up is California Avocado Commission. That's because they pay for location. It is an excellent website. I would highly recommend perusing that. They are also a sponsor to the California Avocado Society. They help pay for our quarterly meetings, and they're great supporters of the society. You can pick up some real good recipes in there. You can read about how to recover from heat or frost damage. Excellent articles and really good website. But then you got to go to our website so you can get cool swag like our California Avocado Society hat. Collector's items, you need one, you really do. License plate frames, gotta have it. There's the advertisement. Now, what I need to do now is start talking about another type of sponsorship. We have another sponsorship called Foundation Sponsors. And as you can see, I'm wearing my American Ag Credit hat. These are great people. They sponsor the society. This foundation sponsorship is limited to 10 sponsors. They cover all of our fixed costs. We have employees, we have insurance, we have meetings. We really like them. I highly recommend American Ag Credit. They gave me a loan, so they'll give you one, I'm sure. Moving on forward, let's jump into our very first speaker, John Krist. John has 24, look who forgot to turn off his phone. Guess what? I think it's because my warranty's expired. What do you know? John has 24 years of experience as a reporter. He is an editor, a columnist for the daily Ventura County Star newspaper. His commentaries on land use and environmental issues have been published in numerous magazines and newspapers throughout the United States. John is the CEO of Ventura's Farm Bureau. His latest book fits right into his new job, The Living Legacy and Story of Ventura County Agriculture. John's going to talk about a subject that's important to all avocado growers. Going to talk about water. John, the computer's yours.
Thank you, Leo. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, so to speak. Basically, I'm sitting in my dining room, so but it's a pleasure to be in front of all of you. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about water issues in Ventura County, and I have to say, first as a reporter, and now for the last 14 years as CEO of Farm Bureau, I've been keeping tabs on Ventura County water issues for more than 30 years, and I think I'm justified in saying I've never seen as much conflict, uncertainty as there is in the water world today. And there are a bunch of reasons for this, but I'll describe some of them and sort of what we are confronting here in the near and long-term future from a water resources standpoint in one of the most productive agricultural counties in the United States. So first I want to talk a little bit about what the water picture looks like. What are our sources and what type of demand do we have here in the county? Ventura County is very, very unusual among the big ag counties of California in its reliance on groundwater. So for the entire county, the water supply breaks down to about 63% of what's used comes from local groundwater pumped out of our many groundwater basins. We are tapped into the state water project. So about 25% of the county's supply comes from the state water project. It's imported into the county via the Cayugas Municipal Water District, which is a member of the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. That's primarily an urban source. The state project water is delivered to about 3/4 of the households in the county. It's too expensive to use for irrigation, so it's really not a significant source of water for farming. Local surface water accounts for about 8% of the total supply. That's impounded in 2 reservoirs, Lake Casitas in the West County and Lake Piru in the hills and above the east end of the Santa Clara River Valley. Lake Piru is a very unusual surface water reservoir in that the water from that reservoir is not delivered directly to any end users. What it does, what the United Water Conservation District that operates it does is periodically it releases the water that's been impounded in the dam into Piru Creek, and it flows into the Santa Clara River. And as it flows down the river, it recharges groundwater basins, and ultimately those flows are diverted into artificial recharge ponds. So it's a surface water reservoir that functions solely to recharge groundwater basins. Very, very unusual sort of thing. And the last piece of our water supply portfolio in the county is recycled water. We have City of Oxnard operates a wastewater recycling plant, and Camarosa Water District also recycles reclaimed treated effluent from Conejo Creek. So it's about 3 to 4% right now. And that's expected to grow in importance in the future. As for demand, agriculture accounts for as you might expect, the largest share, but not by a lot. It accounts for 57% of the overall demand. Municipal and industrial demand accounts for the other 43%. But as I said at the outset, when we're talking about agricultural irrigation supplies, it's all about groundwater. Groundwater accounts for more than 85% of all the water used by agriculture in Ventura County, which is good and bad. It means we're entirely dependent, for the most part, on local sources we have control over. But it also means we're responsible for managing that resource in a sustainable way. And here's where things start getting kind of interesting. So we have 18 major groundwater basins in Ventura County, and 4 of these are considered by the state to be high priority. They're very important for both agriculture and municipal use. And 2 of those are critically overdrafted. And the reason, I'll get into the reasons for that here in a minute. And then we have seven that are considered medium priority and 7 that are low or very low. And the reason that these categories are important is because of a legislation that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It was passed by the legislature and signed into law in 2014. And it's called the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. And what it requires is for these high and medium priority basins, local entities to establish groundwater sustainability agencies to manage those basins. And those GSAs, as we call them, are required to develop ground sustainability plans for those basins, showing how over the next 20 years, they're going to basically bring extractions in balance with recharge, both artificial and natural. And what this means in Ventura County varies depending on where you are. The basins that lie along the Santa Clara River Valley, the Piru, Fillmore, and Santa Paula basins are in pretty good shape. They're already more or less in balance, and that's due to the fact that they're easily recharged when we have surface flows in the Santa Clara River, which happens every once in a while. We haven't had any of that in the last few years. So the Fillmore and Piru basins have a less of a challenge bringing them their extractions into sustainability than some of the other areas. For example, out on the Oxnard Plain, the Oxnard and Pleasant Valley basins, which underlie the rich coastal plain where more than half of our agricultural acreage is located. It's the land of vegetables and berry production and flowers. They are in critical overdraft, and the sustainability plans for those basins look a lot different than the ones for Fillmore and Piru basins. And so this is one of the sources of major, unease and uncertainty going forward. We've had access to some modeling that's been done that demonstrates that those basins, which, as I said, underlie more than half of the most productive farmland in the county, are being pumped at a rate that's about 40% higher than what sustainability looks like over the long term. So absent any significant new projects to bring new sources of water into that system, over the next 2 decades, we're looking at potentially a radical reshaping of what agriculture looks like out there on the coastal plain. There's simply not as much water in the ground as we are pumping. And 40% reduction looks pretty ugly out there. Over in the west part of the county, in the Ventura River watershed, which stretches from the Ojai Valley all the way down to the coast at Ventura. Again, we have groundwater basins of significance up there: the Ojai Basin, the Upper Ventura River Basin, the Lower Ventura River Basin. The situation there is a little different. Those basins are pumped in concert with deliveries from Lake Casitas by Casitas Municipal Water District. So that entire system is sort of operated in a different way than areas out there with no access to alternative supplies. So what's really making the situation right now more complicated, as I said at the beginning, than I've ever seen in 30 years, is we have a long history in Ventura County of collaborative management of our water resources. Lots of agencies work together, municipal and agricultural agencies. And what's happening right now is under these various stresses, some of them natural. I mean, we're in the middle of what I consider to be a 10-year drought with 3 years of average or above average rainfall sprinkled throughout it. Last year, we got 3.5 inches of rain out on the coastal plain. Normally it's 17. So we've got drought stressing everything. That forces people to do more groundwater pumping. But on top of that, we've got the SGMA layer, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. All of the basins that need to have GSAs have them. For the Oxnard Plain and the Las Posas Valley, that entity is the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency, which has been around since the early 80s, and is charged now with developing those sustainability plans and having allocations for pumpers. And the specter of these shortages and these cutbacks due to both hydrology and regulatory approaches have basically triggered a whole raft of legal challenges. So we have the distinction in Ventura County of having the first adjudication litigation filings in the post-SGMA era. And we don't have just one, we have 3 of them. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those. The one has been filed. The first one was over the Las Posas basins, and that runs through an area with a lot of avocado production up in the hills, some vegetable and berry production down on the flat slope, the flat ground at the bottom of the valley, Las Posas Valley. And that's a classic adjudication. It's one group of pumpers filing suit against all the other pumpers and asking a judge basically to decide how much water, basically to quantify the water rights of all of those land, those parcels in that area. That's pretty classic. That's wending its way through the courts. You know, lots of money being thrown at that. I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but what's interesting is it'll be like the first test of the balance between what a GSA says the water, dividing the waters among the landowners looks like versus what SGMA says you have to do to manage the basins. There's been no court test of the SGMA law, how it interacts with basically California groundwater rights. So that's at stake there. More recently, we've also seen litigation filed by landowners overlying the Oxnard and Pleasant Valley basins. They too are seeking a classic adjudication of the basins, but they're also challenging the authority of the GMA to determine their allocations. They've also raised a peculiar claim that the GMA violated the California Environmental Quality Act by deciding, exercising its statutory authority to determine allocations. But by far the strangest of the adjudication litigation is in the Ventura River watershed. And over there, the litigation that started the process was actually filed by an environmental group against the city of Ventura, claiming that its pumping from wells in the lower Ventura River were dewatering the river at a time that was critical for the passage of endangered southern steelhead. The city of Ventura responded to that lawsuit by cross-complaining against every water user in the entire watershed, saying that they couldn't be held solely responsible for the conditions in the lower river if you've got all these pumpers and diverters upstream also using water from the river. So that cross-complaint basically triggered an action that seeks to adjudicate not just the groundwater in the system, but also the surface water. It's a comprehensive surface and groundwater adjudication and involves thousands of individual users and water customers. And it's unbelievably complicated, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Complicating that, so you've got that layer, you've got litigation over flows in the river. You also had a recent order, or I don't know exactly how to categorize it, but a determination by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, again related to the presence of endangered steelhead. And it takes the shape of flow recommendations that they would like to see imposed to protect the steelhead. Problem is, when we do the calculations to achieve those flows, it would basically cause all human use of water in the watershed to cease 80% of the calendar year. Strikes me as a fairly unlikely practical outcome. And on top of that, the State Water Resources Control Board is also developing some modeling and will have its own separate flow recommendations for the protection of steelhead. So it's a complicated setting. Hydrology is, just part of it. And the big outlier, the big uncertainty factor out there is what our changing climate over the next 20 years is going to do to our precipitation patterns and our temperature patterns. And, I try not to be pessimistic. I work for people who are optimistic by requirement. You don't put seeds in the ground every year if you're not optimistic about the outcome. But it's hard to see the future looking anything like the most recent past. We've experienced a period of remarkable stability over the last half century. And that period appears to be coming at an end. So it's going to require all the creativity that our growers have historically displayed to really power through this and come out the other side. I don't know what agriculture is going to look like 20 years from now. It's not going to look like it does today. But I'm hoping there'll be, I'll still be able to, walk out the front door at a hillside, ranch and pick avocados off the trees. But so I think that's about all I've got from prepared remarks. I'm happy to take any questions that people might have.
What I'd like to do, John, is I'd like to limit the questions to 4 at this time and let you pick the questions you'd like. And then anyone that has a burning question afterwards, please hang around once we're finished with the meeting, which should be around noon. I'm really trying to respect everyone's time, and they've set time for this. So you and I could talk about water all day, John. So
yes.
why don't you go ahead and let's try to limit it to 4, and then we'll have our next speaker. Thank you.
Hey guys, this is Leah. It looks like we don't have any questions yet in the Q&A, but I want to encourage everyone who's dialed in here to go ahead and post your questions to the Q&A section, and then our panelists will be able to see those and respond to a few at the close of their presentation, and hopefully take some more at the end.
Well, thanks, Leah. Hey, since I've got a microphone, John, tell me, how does this all tie in with irrigated lands groups?
Yeah, that's a whole nother layer of uncertainty. So actually, my organization manages an entity called the Ventura County Agricultural Irrigated Lands Group, and it's a entity that was put together 15 years ago to help growers, owners of irrigated land, comply with state and federal water quality regulations. And so we have a comprehensive monitoring program. We monitor water quality at dozens of sites around the county. We prepare reports that we submit to the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and we work with growers to implement best management practices to address, non-point source pollution, possibly coming from their irrigation practices and their operations. That's pretty strictly on the water quality side. But one of the BMPs, the best management practices that we encourage growers to adopt, and which they mostly have, is increased use of highly efficient irrigation strategies and systems. Because in terms of water quality issues, we've got two distinct species of water problems. It's runoff from irrigation, and it's runoff from storm flows. The only one of those two that farmers have control over is their irrigation. So we've already seen the adoption of highly efficient, micro sprinkler drip systems pretty much across the board in Ventura County. And it's very rare for us to see dry weather irrigation runoff, particularly in the orchard crops. It's a little tougher in some of the veg and berry production. For us, the remaining big problem though is storm flows in those years when we do have storms. It's very difficult to control storm flow runoff from farms, and those can carry sediment and other contaminants into the waterways. So, for those, we encourage a lot of different other strategies, grassed waterways, detention basins where that's appropriate. But realistically, there's not a lot we can do there. But so that's the nexus between water supply and water quality is if you're more efficient with your irrigation, it's good from a water supply standpoint. It's also good from a water quality standpoint. Okay, so here's a question. Are there similar legal challenges occurring in water basins in the Santa Barbara or San Luis Obispo County areas? The answer to that right now, I'm not aware of any other adjudication actions that have been initiated recently since SIGMA took effect in 2015. I think we're kind of an outlier right now, but I tend to follow Ventura County issues far more closely than I do those elsewhere. But so anyway, I'm not aware of any. We have another question. Any take on MWD elsewhere in SoCal? I'm not sure. Okay, so this is a good question. So comparing our groundwater sustainability plans versus those in other parts of the state, does the fact that we have 3 adjudications here indicate that our GSPs are being too aggressive or not aggressive enough, or folks just more litigious or more sophisticated here? I think it's hard to answer. I don't think the GSPs are more aggressive. I think it's just that we're farther along in the process than other areas are. The Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency, because we had 2 critically overdrafted basins, the GSPs had to be prepared by 2020. The others got until 2022. And the GMA, so those were the first to actually get done. I think what's going to happen, and what I noticed over the couple of years while the GSPs were being developed, is the closer we got to adoption of an actual allocation, the people rising to publicly address the GMA board during the meetings switched from farmers to lawyers. And that was the sign that, as once we really started to see what the shape of the allocation system was going to look like, that's when people lawyered up and decided to contest. I think this is probably going to happen in other parts of the state as well, once those GSPs sort of reach that final stage and landowners start seeing how much of the value of their property stands to be lost because they're not going to be able to irrigate it. So let's see. So I guess this is a question about are other areas supplied by MET, by MWD, under the same kind of water stresses? Yes, to some degree. I mean, down in San Diego County, where you have a robust agricultural industry and affected by drought and high water costs, that's one of the reasons that so much avocado production has gone away down in San Diego County. Really expensive water and not much rainfall. But much of the MET service area is urban. So Yeah, they share the water stresses, but they don't. It plays out differently on the M&I side of the ledger than it does in agriculture.
John, what
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and do there, that's 4 questions.
Okay.
I can see they're starting to stack up here. Like I said, we'll have questions about water forever.
Yeah.
And those of you that do have questions, if you can hang around till after the meeting, John's been generous with his time and he's going to hang out with us. So with that, I appreciate your presentation. That was excellent. Go ahead.
Actually, I do have to say I have another presentation I have to get to at noon. So I'm happy to answer questions by email if people want to send them to me. I'll stay here until I have to go.
What email address would you like the questions sent to, John?
It's John at farmbureauvc, as in Ventura County.com.
Oh, excellent. That's fantastic. That's very nice of you. Thank you. Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Really difficult subject. Once again, I want to thank another foundation member. This foundation member I just happened to work for. So as you probably know, Calavo. They've been a sponsor of the Avocado Society from the very beginning of Calavo. Last year we went into the history and talked about how the two groups were very related. This year, part of their sponsorship is once we found out we did not have enough bandwidth to run the meeting from another location. Today's meeting is being run from Calavo's center. We set up a little studio for Leah, and thank you, Calavo, for being such a supporter of the society. Our next speaker works for one of our very good supporters. She's Consuelo Fernandez. She went to university in her home country of Chile. Consuelo went to work after university in South Africa at Westphalia. She did research on mangoes and avocados there. In 2014, she came to the United States to go to work for Brokaw Nursery as the full-time international representative and supervisor of research and development. As you know, during COVID, everyone's travel has been limited. So Consuelo has focused her time on developing the Long Canyon Ranch. And we're looking forward to this presentation, Consuelo.
Thank you. Okay, so I've been asked to talk about the work of our team here at Brokaw Nursery, developing Long Canyon Ranch. With climate change putting a growing strain on water and land throughout the world, we need to find technical solutions that can make avocado growing both sustainable and affordable. So that's why we have been focusing on developing Long Canyon as a high density orchard. The plan of this presentation is to go a bit through what we have been doing over there. Of course, this is teamwork, so all my colleagues have been doing this, and I've just been looking and supervising and trying to help as much as I can. And then we're gonna talk a bit about rootstocks and what's available now in the market. So Long Canyon Ranch is located in Ventura County. It's on the east end of Ventura. And I'm sorry, but there. And we acquired it on June 2019. The total acreage of the farm is 370 acres and plantable acreage is of 70 acres. The limit of 70 out of the 370, of course, it's water availability. The background of the orchard is that it used to be planted to avocados, but with Thomas Fire, a lot of the blocks suffered a lot, and we had to remove them, most of them, once we acquired the farm in 2019. The only survival block was codorniz block, that it's the only block that it's planted on flat without berms, I mean, and the cultivar there is Haas with Toro Canyon. This block used to be planted or irrigated with sprinklers, but once we started working there, we decided to change the sprinklers to 3 drip lines. Our standard is 2 drip lines, but because the sprinkler usually wet a bigger amount or volume of soil, we decided that if we put only 2 drip lines, we might stress the tree. So that's why we went for 3. Soon as after we acquired the farm, on 2019, we planted a new block called Yegua. We had these experimental rootstocks at the nursery that we couldn't sell because they were experimental back then. And we had these trees and we bought the farm, and 1 month later we said, okay, let's go ahead and plant something. So we planted a Haas block that has some Dusa, Toro Canyon, Serrala, and Leola rootstocks, as well as the R18. From the moment we bought the farm, Serrala and Leola rootstocks have become commercially available. That block is looking amazing. A bit older than 2 years, and trees are very healthy. You can't really tell any difference between the rootstocks right now, but the plan is to start monitoring yield starting next year. Then we planted Culebra and Gavilan on the spring of 2020. Culebra is a Haas block with Serrala, Leola, and R18, so new rootstocks. Right now, those trees, they all look the same. They are all thriving super well. We haven't measured any yields yet. And Gavilan, we planted it with gem on Toro Canyon and Dusa. Our standard practice is that Toro Canyon, we usually put it on the lower areas of the hills because the drainage is not very good. And we try to put Dusa in the upper sides of the hill where we think that there's better drainage. 2021, so earlier this year, we planted 3 more blocks, Ciervo, Jabalí, and Tecolote. Ciervo and Jabalí are on gem because we're planning on having 50% of the farm with gem and the other 50 with Haas. The Jabalí block, where we have better drainage, we decided to go with Dusa, and Ciervo, where the drainage doesn't seem very well, we decided to go with Toro Canyon. The trees are good. They are doing very well and thriving. And then Tecolote, we decided to go with Haas, Toro Canyon, Dusa, and Leola. Leola is one of the new rootstocks that seems to be performing very well under our conditions, as well as a Toro Canyon or Dusa based on our other rootstock trials. Next year in spring, we're planning on planting a new block that's also a block. We are now working on making the berms, preparing the land. And this also block, we plan on planting 1 part in 2022 and the other part on 2023. We're gonna put Haas there and a rootstock trial. So about 2/3 of this block will be rootstock trial. We are testing a lot of rootstocks from all over the world. We have some from Israel, South Africa, New Zealand, also Peru, and a few from California as well. The plan is to test these new rootstocks that are all experimental against the commercially available ones. That way we can see which one works better under our conditions. Then in the future, we have 2 blocks that we would like to plant. These are Puma and Coyote. They will be Gem and Haas, and we don't know when we're gonna plant them. If we have another health crisis or world crisis, it will happen very soon, but hopefully that won't be the case. Then the rootstocks that we will choose for those will depend on our experience with the ones that we are trialing already. So there it goes to a total of 70. So in 2 years, we've done a lot of work. So That's mainly thanks to the pandemic. Our approach in this orchard has been only to have, mainly to have high density plantings. We're using a distance of 6 by 16 feet for gem and 6.5 by 16.5 for Hass. And we think that this is viable thanks to a management package that has many components. Some of these components are the use of berms, drip irrigation, girdling, and pruning. So for berms, we are using them all over the place. We build them with excavators. We tend to do them downslope with a length that runs not more than 200 feet. That's the maximum we allow. The reason of that length is because that way we ease the work of the pickers when they come to harvest. Also, that way we can get more uniform irrigation. And because that way we also control a bit the erosion. Erosion is a big concern. Everybody, when they come and visit us, they say, hey, what about erosion? What's your experience with erosion? So for erosion, we think about it when we design the orchard. We have to design the length of the runs less than 200 feet, as I already mentioned. We make roads very close to each other, and we don't let a lot of water to accumulate superficially. So what we have done is we have developed a bunch of underground tunnels for drains. So this would help us control the erosion. So as you can see in these pictures, these are some of our underground tunnels for the drainage of water. And as you can see, we're very optimistic that a rain will fall. So hopefully they will see some water, but let's cross our fingers. Then the other component is irrigation. We always use 2 drip lines for irrigation. The specifications are there in the presentation. In terms of frequency, we usually irrigate every 8 to 10 days. Now, of course, this will depend if we have a heat wave coming or it's a very hot week. We might run like short irrigations throughout the orchard. And of course, just before and during the heat wave. In terms of the duration of the irrigations, we usually irrigate the young blocks for 4 to 5 hours. We can go up to 8 when the orchards are older. And we apply between 20 and 30% more water every 5th irrigation. That's for leaching of salts. We have started working with Phytech on installing some sensors to monitor the tree and the fruit growth. These sensors will enable us to tell when a tree is going into water stress before it's shown visually. We hope that with the use of these sensors, we can see what's the minimum amount of water we can use for a tree without putting it in stress. So this is something we only started playing around 2 months ago. Our approach has been just to install them for 2 months, and after 2 months, observe like whether we need to do any changes or not. So we're having fun. It's a nice system, and for now we're happy with it. But again, it's pretty new for us. And I wanted to say that, of course, we've had our challenges. We have coyotes in the farm, a lot of them, and they love chewing on our beautiful irrigation lines. So we do have to spend a lot of money and efforts going to fix it. You can see like water spraying all over the place. So that's one of our main challenges. Girdling, we do it mainly to increase the amount of flowers. We know that the way to control the size of a tree is by putting more fruit on the trees. So we do girdling in September and October. We actually finished girdling this week in Long Canyon. We only girdle on the vigorous trees and it requires a lot of skill to identify which branches and trees to girdle. But our trees are the ones that are 2 years old or a bit older than 2 years old are actually very healthy. So we decided to go ahead and girdle most of them. So yeah, we're doing that with trees that are 2 years old. We do not suggest girdle for gem, since gem tends to have a lot of flowers and it doesn't require to girdle. It's a tree that can actually flower so much, especially the first years, that it can like really stress itself. So we don't suggest girdling it. One thing that we need to keep in mind when girdling is that the timing of flowering will change. So we think it's gonna be earlier in the next spring. So that's why if you're in a cold area, you should try to delay your girdling season or your girdling timing. That way, when the spring comes, you don't have you're flowering at the beginning cold days of spring. And our last component of our management technique is pruning. We try to prune once a year. It would be after harvest. We try to harvest as soon as possible. So what we do here at the nursery is we take samples for dry matter every 2 weeks at the beginning of the season, and then on a weekly basis. And when we hit 23%, and our taste panel says that the fruit are good, we go ahead and harvest as soon as we can. That allows the trees to rest and to have less alternate bearing. So as soon as we are done harvesting, we make our main pruning. I'm not gonna go too deep on where to cut or anything, because Gerardo, who's the pruning expert, who's actually in these photos teaching us how to prune, will be giving a talk later, so I'm gonna leave that to him. But the main reasons why we prune is to maximize the light in the canopy, to control the size of the trees, and also for wood rejuvenation. And this wood rejuvenation, I want to highlight that for gem, that's a small tree who tends to be very compact. We've seen that it doesn't really require any pruning till the 5th, maybe 6th year. But when you don't touch them until the 5th or 6th year, the wood tends to start like deteriorating and getting a bit old. So that's why we're now trying to maybe do some cuts on the 4th year. We're still learning about this, but that's something we're playing around at the moment. And of course, we do have some unwanted or undesired pruning made by our good friends, the deers, that were full of them. We've been pretty desperate. We started trying to control these using these bazookas that make like a loud noise, but I think they think they're in a discotheque or something. They don't mind. Then we decided to go with fish line, surrounding all the blocks with fish line, like 2 or 3 layers. It worked amazing the first 2 to 3 months, but recent videos have shown that they are jumping over the fish lines. So now we had to go a bit more extremist, and we're now this week setting some electric wires to see whether that would help us. I don't know if they will jump them anyway or whether they will actually get scared. So I think you should wish us a lot of luck. So going on to my second subject, it's a very exciting time in terms of rootstock. We are entering a time where in the past we haven't had a lot of rootstock available at the in the industry. It's always been like very limited. There's a lot of research, but there's nothing like really commercially available. So as a result of these problems, we have added a number of new rootstocks to our lineup. We have now a wider selection to offer, and we have been actively seeking to and establishing trials and testing rootstocks all over the world. So now our current selection involves some rootstocks coming from New Zealand, from Peru, from South Africa, and from Israel. I'm gonna go very quickly on the next slides. This is, the slides were prepared by Jen Evans, who's part of our research team. And so all the following rootstocks that I'm gonna mention are all commercially available at the moment. So I'm gonna start with Leola. Leola, it's a rootstock that's selected in South Africa. It's a Westphalia, the owner is Westphalia Technological Services. And it's a rootstock that has been performing as good and sometimes better as do Santora Canyon, that are our industry standards. And we actually planted a bunch of them in our Long Canyon orchard. So this is one of the new available ones. And I think it's really good. We're happy with it. We haven't seen that it doesn't perform anywhere for now. Serala rootstock, it's another selection from Westphalia Technological Services in South Africa. It was also selected for Phytophthora. It does well, especially one of Peggy Mogg's trials at UCR showed that Serala behaved very well under salinity conditions. So that's one of the reasons why we decided to go ahead and start commercializing this one. But so the results are very encouraging. Then we have 3 of the VC selections from Israel. These belong to the Volcani Center that from the Israeli government. Brokaw Nursery has a license for all the VC selections. We have an exclusive license in California. And the truth is that the 3 of them were selected for Phytophthora and for salinity reasons, but the information is coming mainly from Israel and some information from UCR as well. We don't have ourselves a lot of experience because we only signed the agreement a few months ago, but based on the experience of existing trees in some of our California growers' orchards, these 3 rootstocks seem to be very promising. I'm not gonna go in depth in each of the rootstock characteristics, but we will make available this presentation on our website. That way, anyone who wants to go deeper into the details, they can just go to our website and look over there. So VC801 and VC66, those are the 3 that are patented in the US. In this slide, I have 2 rootstocks. One of them is the Day or VC207. This is a selection that has been around forever. It's a public domain rootstock, but lately it has been showing that it might have some salinity tolerance. Some growers have been actually ordering more of this rootstock and planting it in different areas. For now, we have only got positive feedback, nothing wrong with it. So we should continue looking at this rootstock as a good alternative for salinity areas. And then I have the KB1. KB1 is a selection from Peru. And it's a selection that, if you look at it at the paper, like it doesn't have anything outstanding. Actually, it has no tolerance to Phytophthora cinnamomi. But when you go out to the orchard, it's always looking good, healthy, vigorous. Actually, as you can see in one of our trials here in California, it's performing even better than Toro Canyon, not a lot of alternate bearing. So it's not the perfect rootstock, but it might be suitable for some of the growers who don't struggle that much with Phytophthora in their orchards. The other 3 rootstocks that are commercially available right now are Stedham, Uzi, and Sandmeyer. Stedham has been showing a lot of potential of these 3 rootstocks. I think it's the one that shows stronger potential. It was selected for Phytophthora. It seems to be performing well under salinity conditions. And it has been reported that it might produce smaller trees. Usi, it's a rootstock that at the beginning we didn't look at it closely and didn't like think a lot about it. But lately we think that it is actually in two of our trials, it's in terms of yield, the best one. Now, this is only 2-3 years data, but I think it might have some potential, and we're looking at it and we are monitoring our trials and trying to place it in other areas to see how it performs. Then to finish, we have St. Mayer that for California, it's not good because it's very sensitive to salts. Very sensitive. It was selected for its resistance to Phytophthora cinnamomum. But at the same time, for example, I've had some comments from South Africa that St. Mayer is really thriving over there because salinity is not an issue, but Phytophthora cinnamomum is. So it might have some potential for countries like in Central America, where you have a lot of rain, you have problems with Phytophthora, but not with salinity. So these are more or less the things that are available now. Of course, I'm not gonna go through the DUSA, Toro Canyon, and Duke 7 because they are known by everyone, but this is whatever, like all the new selections that are available. And I would like to take you on a tour of our beautiful Long Canyon Ranch. So if Leah, you can please play the video. So what you can see here is the hass block that we planted this year, Tecolote block. You can see our berms, planting distance, high density. Those are our gem trees planted a year ago. And here are some of the trees that were planted when we bought the farm. So these are all gems. You can see that we plant on steep hillsides. That's why I talk so much about erosion. So that one over there, the older trees in the bottom of the image are the Hass on Toro Canyon that were the survival ones from the Long Canyon, the Thomas Fire, sorry. And this is going uphill. It's our two slightly older than 2 years old Hass. This is where we have the different Serrala, Leola, RO18, Dusa, and Toro Canyon rootstocks. These three, we had a first harvest last year, and this year they are pretty loaded, and we are actually girdling these trees. And we're very happy with them. So here you can see the fruit on these 2-year-old trees. This is the way we put our drip lines on the berm. And some gem on our trees planted 2020. This is the OSA block where we are land prepping, and we are gonna put some of the new rootstocks in that block. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed what we are doing. We're having lots of fun. And you're invited to come and visit whenever you want.
Okay, Consuelo, if we can, again, try to limit it to 4 questions. And being the MC, I'm going to take advantage of it and ask the first question. On Long Canyon, do you use pollinators? I just want to throw the controversy in there.
Yes, so our theory is that the closer you are to the ocean, you have more humidity. So you have more chances to have the male and female parts of the flower coinciding. And like, so that's why you wouldn't, the need of pollinators or pollinizers, sorry. I don't know what the right word is, but the need of pollinators, it's not, or pollinizers, it's not as big as in the interior where you have drier conditions. So we decided not to put any in the gem blocks or in the house blocks that we planted until last year, but we did put some in the house block that we planted this year, just because we have to bet and to be on the safe side. We don't know whether we did the right thing or not. We always have the possibility of going in later and top working some trees to pollinators or pollinizers. So yep, we think we will be okay with what we have, but in case we see that we're running into problems, we'll just go in and top work a few.
Excellent. You see any other questions that you want to answer there? Did your internet lock up? Consuelo, you still there? Looks like you've locked up. Maybe we can get you back in a minute. I want to thank Consuelo for not making fun of me. I was trying to pronounce the name of the university she went to, and after trying it 4 times, I gave up. So yeah, I pollinators are easy for me to say, but your university is impossible. While we're waiting for Consuelo to come back, you see I've changed hats. I've got Del Rey on here. Being a Fallbrook local, I want to thank Del Rey for not only sponsoring the California Avocado Society, but youth sports, the Avocado Festival, great sponsors. We really appreciate you, and we appreciate that you let Wayne Bryden be on the board of directors. He is a real part of our group, and very important. And Gerardo, I'm happy you like that. Consuelo, are you back, or did you get dropped off?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay, great.
So I see some questions. Why do we girdle very young trees? And the reason for that is that they are vigorous enough, strong enough, and we want more fruit on those trees. We always want more fruit. So that's why we're doing it so young. If the trees didn't look the way they look, we wouldn't do it. Then how wide are the girdling cuts? We just make it with a small saw. I will try to upload to our website. I once made a presentation about girdling, and in that presentation, you can see the different kinds of knives that we use for the different kind of branches or width of the branches. So I'll try to make sure that that presentation is available on our website so you can see the pictures, measures, and everything. And have you considered contour planting to aid erosion control? No, we don't know whether it would actually help a lot, because you will have different kinds of erosion. Like if you have a lot of water coming down, we don't think that would be the ideal. And we wouldn't be able to feed so many trees. So with what we have been doing for now, we feel pretty comfortable in terms of our erosion control. I don't know when should I stop. main difference between fertilizing gem and has, we usually use the same kinds of fertilizer. We do fertilize gem 20-25% more than a has because it produces more fruit. So we need to feed it a bit more. And girdlings, trunk versus limbs. I might have used the word trunk because English is not my first language and I get confused, but what we try to do is the limb, because what we want to do later in the life of the tree is to cut the places that, or the limbs that have been girdled. That way you don't have a wound forever in the tree. So we usually go with the limbs and not with the main trunk. I'm sorry for that misunderstanding.
Oh, okay. Consuelo, why don't you take one more question, and then we'll keep you late because again, I know people, I've been on the tours of the nursery, and people always have great questions for you guys. You guys are such innovators.
So the last one I see, any advantage to bury drip hose or on berm? We have actually been talking about it, but then we thought an advantage might be that the coyotes won't find them and won't bite them, but then we can't also make sure that they are all working. We do uniformity tests to our drip lines like every 3 months or so. So we feel that it's easier to fix them if you can see where there's damage. But we haven't buried them, so I don't have first-hand like information for that.
Excellent. Consuelo, again, thank you. That was a fantastic presentation. So much information. Thank you. And since you're finishing up, I'm going to skip the alphabet here, and I'm going to talk about another foundation sponsor. You probably noticed this hat is blank because my Westphalia hat is somewhere between here and Johannesburg. I have no idea where it is, but hopefully I'll have one soon. Westphalia is a new foundation sponsor to the Avocado Society. And as Consuelo said, it's a fantastic organization. They do a lot of research, and they've been really good with the society. And with that, I'm also going to move on to another person that's connected with Westphalia. I believe he has a pre-recorded presentation. This is Kevin Ball. He's the past president of CAS, and he's a current board member. And he's going to present the Oliver Atkins Award.
principal issued a SWAT to every student in the school. Needless to say, Dave is a great speller. But that attention to detail, that meticulous work ethic has really translated into everything he's done in the avocado industry. It's what has made his business Hi, my name is Kevin Ball. I'm here with the Avocado Society, and this year it's my privilege to award the Oliver Atkins Award to Dave MACHLITT. The Oliver Atkins Award is given to recognize those who go above and beyond their regular duties to contribute to the avocado industry. Dave is an entomologist. He's been in the industry since 1980. He has a degree in entomology from UC Davis and a master's in pest management. In 1980, he moved to Ventura County and started working with Fruit Growers Lab. Soon thereafter, opened his own business, consulting entomology services, in 1984. Ever since, he's been working in Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo counties, walking rows up and down the coast. Dave has been an integral part of the industry. One of his, I think his most proud accomplishments was his work on abamectin and timing, and Dave's the one who came up with our timing for agromec sprays. He's the one who realized that the flush is really our key indicator on when we should be spraying, not necessarily the calendar or the number of bugs there. I talked to several different growers about Dave when I found out he was getting this award, just to have them describe who Dave is, and all of them said that Dave is a hardworking, honest, and meticulous in everything he does. Dave is always up on the latest and greatest treatments. He's always very knowledgeable on a whole variety of different issues in regards to both citrus and avocados. And I was told a story while I was, well, Dave knows which one I'm referring to, about being meticulous. And the story went that when Dave was young in school, every Friday he was forced to take his spelling test to the principal's office. And for every word he got wrong, the principal issued a SWAT to every student in the school. Needless to say, Dave is a great speller. But that attention to detail, that meticulous work ethic has really translated into everything he's done in the avocado industry. It's what has made his business successful for the last 40 years. And it really, for myself, my family, we've had Dave on our ranches since the mid 80s. He probably remembers me running around on a three-wheeler through the orchard and making noise, probably dodging us as my brothers and I raced through the orchard. But he's always been there. He's always focused on what the growers' needs are. He always pays attention to how much things cost, and he knows that we're all under pressure as far as the cost of farming in California. And before I close, I just wanted to say thank you to Dave. I also wanted to say thank you to his wife Lydia, because it's always a partnership to make these things happen. And for somebody to have a successful business, you have to have a good partner in order for that to happen. But with that being said, I want to say thank you, Dave, and present you with your award.
Great, thank you so much.
Thanks, Dave.
I'd like to thank the California Avocado Society board for giving me this award. It was unexpected. Thank you for that. I also want to thank the many customers I've had, both past and present. And I want to thank them for allowing me to come work on their groves, walk their fields with them, and then help them both avoid and solve production problems. Every so often, I'm reminded of how fortunate I've been to end up working in the avocado industry in the beautiful region of the central coast of California, I just pinch myself every few days and think, this is great. Again, I want to thank the society, and I just think of myself and the work, my customers, and what I've been able to do, and it's just like, boy, is this a great job or what? Thank you.
Okay. Dave is very deserving of this award. I had seen him speak a few times, and then I had a privilege of traveling with he and his wife Lydia with the Avocado Society when we went down to Uruapan for 7 days. There were 30 of us. It was a fantastic tour. And as soon as this whole COVID thing is over, we're planning more tours. We're planning South Africa. We're planning Colombia. We're planning Brazil, and of course, we're going to probably have a pre-tour of New Zealand before the World Avocado Congress. But it's a great opportunity. You get to meet people like Dave, very knowledgeable. He helped us a lot when we first had problems with scrotothrips, and it's really great. I've changed sponsors. Now we're with Index. Index is the only sponsor that is older than the California Avocado Society. And they've been with the society from the very beginning. And I'd like to thank Index for being a sponsor. I want to thank them for letting us have the time. Keith Blanchard is a past president of the California Avocado Society. You probably remember him. He was up here 2 years ago doing the MC work. Excellent guy, really helpful with the society. And thank you, Index Fresh, for all these years of support. Those of you that have been on these meetings before will probably know our next speaker. He's by way of New Zealand via UC Riverside. Dr. Mark Hoddle is another person that really helped with our thrips problem and has worked with every pest we've had. If you look at his bio, he has over 200 publications. He's the director of the Center of Invasive Species Research. Mark has literally traveled to the ends of the earth to find beneficial insects. And it's because of people like Mark that UC Riverside is the world-renowned integrated pest management company and location, and helps us use less pesticides and more beneficial insects, and helps us with protocols. So I could go on for a while, but Mark, it's all yours.
Great, thank you, Leo. I'm hoping you guys can hear me just fine. And I'll bring up my share screen. Oops, just a second. Get this up here. Go to that presentation, just swap it around. Okay, does that look clearer at your end, Leo? Can you guys see that just fine?
It's perfect, Chair Mark. It's really
okay,
good.
Great. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody who's here in California, and hi to everybody else who's tuning in from out of the state and perhaps from other countries in the world. A big shout out to Dave MACHLITT. Dave and I have done a lot of stuff together over the years, and it was great to see him just receive that award. Yeah, really well deserved, and a recognition of years of effort. And both Dave and Tom Roberts have taught me a lot from the times we've spent in the field together. So we're going to be talking about two bugs today. One that's here in California right now. Let me turn on my laser pointer. These little yellow and black things, the avocado lace bug. We'll spend maybe about 2/3 of this presentation talking about these guys and what we're currently planning to do, I guess management-wise with these bugs. And then I'm going to segue into a new project that we're dealing with. This is the avocado seed weevil, the large avocado seed weevil, Helipus lauri. It's not currently in California, but we have funding through the CDFA to work proactively on this pest. And this project's also been supported by the California Avocado Commission. This is something we don't want coming into California. If it does come into the state, we're going to be prepared for it. Similar to the proactive work that we did on the avocado seed moth, Stenoma catanifer, that you may be familiar with. Okay, so a little bit of an overview on avocado lacebug. Its scientific name is Pseudocista persiae. It's a tingid, and that means it's a lacebug within the order Hemiptera, and that means it has piercing, sucking mouth parts. So these needle-like mouth parts are what it uses to puncture the individual plant cells on the underside of a leaf. And then with its maxillary stylets, it basically forms a straw to suck that juice back into its mouth. And as a result of that feeding, you end up with these characteristic brown splodges on the undersides of the leaves. And we'll look at some photographs of those characteristic feeding damage symptoms in a few minutes. So this insect was originally described from specimens that were collected in Florida way back in 1908 from avocados that were planted in the state. Given that long historical record, it has always been assumed that avocado lacebug was an insect native to Florida and possibly the southeastern United States. We're going to circle back around to this in a bit later in the presentation when we talk about the avocado lacebug invasion into Southern California when we first picked it up in the Chula Vista National City area in 2004, because the DNA work resulting from those studies suggested that the area of origin for avocado lacebug may not be Florida as originally thought. So back in 2004, this insect showed up in San Diego, National City, people's backyards. And it was a well-known pest of avocados, not only in Florida, but parts of the Caribbean, and certainly the Caribbean side of Mexico. But when we started working on this pest back in 2004, Joe Morse and I, with support from the California Avocado Commission, this insect really didn't do anything. It just sort of hung out on avocado trees in people's backyards in Chula Vista, National City, and really didn't spread into the commercial avocado grows. And that was what we were really worried about, that this bug was going to explode and cause incredible amounts of damage, similar to what we had seen in other areas, especially like Florida and in particular the Caribbean. So then 13 years later, I started getting these calls from PCAs like Enrico Ferro down into the Temecula area saying, oh, avocado lacebugs all over the place down here. It's like, hang on a minute, I don't think so. You may be confusing it with something else. So I went out and spent, an afternoon with Enrico and a couple of the other growers down there. It's like, wow, they're right. It is avocado lacebug. What on earth has happened here? Why has it suddenly outbroken and moved up here into the northern part of San Diego County and southern areas of Riverside County, and it's causing tons of damage on Hass avocados? We hadn't seen this before. So that was a mystery that was unfolding that we've also begun to investigate. And it's this ongoing problem that started in 2017 that has spurred the work that we're going to be doing moving forward from here. So the adults and nymphs of these bugs, they live on the undersides of the leaves. And because of this piercing feeding process that they have, this is what results in the damage to the leaves. And the host plants are all within the family Lauraceae, so they'll feed on avocado. There've been reports of them feeding on camphor trees, and in Florida, they're known to infest red bay as well. So what do we know about avocado lacebug? Well, surprisingly, given that it's such a well-known pest that's widely distributed through parts of Mexico, down into Guatemala, and all through the Caribbean, we know very little about the biology and ecology of this pest. So it's been reported as a sporadic pest of avocados from Florida, and it's possible that it outbreaks when insecticides are applied to the orchards for control of other bugs, and this releases them from their natural enemies, so the populations build up and cause damage. From the work that Phil Phillips and I did, you may remember Phil, he was an area-wide IPM advisor with UC Cooperative Extension based out of Ventura with Ben Faber. Phil and I did a lot of foreign exploration for avocado lacebug, and we did some of that work with Bill Rolch from the CDFA as well. And sure enough, in the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, lacebugs were an insane problem for growers and homeowners to deal with there, and they did really great on Hass avocados. The literature also suggests that these lace bugs tend to outbreak in hot, dry periods. We've just come through that period now. We're moving into October, and the populations in these orchards are probably going to start to decline going into November. So the avocados varieties, there's some evidence to suggest that cultivars may vary in susceptibility to attack. What was very interesting for us was when we first dealt with this problem back in 2004, we could only maintain avocado lacebug on bacon avocados. It wouldn't do anything on Hass. Now the populations that we're dealing with that are in the Fallbrook, Temecula, Oceanside area, and actually those populations stretch all the way out now into LA County. We've had confirmed reports and collections from Long Beach and Culver City as well. It does great on Hass, similar to what we had seen in the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. There are some reports that if the attacks on these trees are heavy enough, you can reduce the yields of fruit, and that's possibly due because of defoliation events. So if enough lacebug feeding damage occurs to leaves, the tree may drop those leaves, probably similar to what we originally observed with Persea mite when that invasion first came into California in the early 1990s. So this is an old map that was put together by the California Department of Food and Agriculture, and these bright magenta and red spots show locations where avocado lacebug was first detected in 2004, 2005, 2006, and how it spread slowly northwards and then just sort of petered out. And it never established a foothold in commercial avocado orchards in San Diego County, at least none that I am aware of. And this was the damage that we were seeing in people's backyards. This is a bacon tree. And the levels of damage that we're seeing in Chula Vista from avocado lacebug was absolutely astonishing. You can see the heavy bronzing of these leaves, and a characteristic symptom of feeding damage are these heavy necrotic islands that develop in the central portions of the leaf. So we'll take a close-up of these feeding damaged areas, and you can see the brown necrotic island here and all the stippling and bronzing around that particular spot. And there is some evidence or indication, at least in the published scientific literature, that this damage that we see here highlighted in red may be amplified in part because the damage that the lacebug creates allows entry for these pathogenic fungi, possibly these Calidotrichum species, which result in the formation of these brown necrotic islands, which are very characteristic damage symptoms associated with lacebug infestations. So something that you may confuse lacebug feeding damage with is tip burn. I've had calls and photographs sent to me from homeowners and some avocado orchard owners who have just recently taken over their orchards, and they've seen tip burn on the ends of the leaves, which is the result of chloride accumulation, I think, salt accumulation due to salty water being applied to the trees. But you can see that this is quite different from avocado lacebug feeding damage, which is almost always in the central parts of the leaf and not located towards the tip ends of the leaf. So this is what you'll see during a heavy feeding event or heavy population densities on the undersides of these leaves. The adults are very distinctive. You won't confuse them with anything else. They're yellow and black, and you'll often see the egg trails that are laid in these long lines. Sometimes individual eggs may be scattered around these egg trails. And the adult females seem to cover them with this waxy tar or this sticky tar. And we're not really sure what that material is. It may be some sort of fecal material, perhaps. And it's been proposed that the function that this material has may be to protect the eggs from parasitoids, predators. It may even help protect from fungus or even possibly desiccation if the eggs are exposed to low humidity conditions. Those eggs will hatch, and then the immature stages are referred to as nymphs, and they're basically little adults that have no yellow coloration. You can see that we have some late instar nymphs here. They've developed the wing pads that you can see on the sides of the bodies. And here's a life stage that's a little bit younger than the probably a second or third instar here. Its wing pads are quite a bit smaller than these fourth instar nymphs that you can see here. So the life cycle is like super simple with these insects. There's male and females in the population. They'll mate. Often they'll stay in copulata for a couple of hours on the undersides of the leaves. Sometimes you'll even see 3 of them paired up, 2 males onto 1 female, which is very a weird type of thing to see, and be something interesting there to investigate to see what's going on with the reproductive biology there. So the eggs are laid on the undersides of the leaves, and these individual eggs lack that waxy or that oily, I don't know, we refer to it as a black sticky tar type material. So these eggs don't have any of that over them, which allows us to see the opercula here, which is the opening in the top of the egg. And that is where the little nymph has hatched out of the egg. And some of those eggs have actually developed a fungal infection, which may have occurred because of a lack of that protective sticky tar material that's usually deposited over the tops of those eggs. So these eggs, depending on the temperature, may take about 2 weeks or so to hatch. Then you'll have these nymphs, which are dark colored, which also feed on the underside of the leaves, and they have those piercing, sucking mouth parts just like the adults. So they extract chlorophyll and other types of juice from the plant that they get their nutrition from, which enables them to grow. And they'll be in the nymphal stage for approximately 2 weeks or so, and then they'll undergo their final molt and their wings will be fully developed. And as they harden up and mature over a few hours after going through their last molt into the adult stage, they'll then take on this characteristic yellow and black coloration. Initially, they're quite pale in color. So some of the phenology work that we did way back in 2005, 2006 with Eduardo Humeras, who was a postdoc working with Joe Morse and myself on avocado lacebug. He would go down with Bill Rolfe from CDFA every month or so and just count the number of lacebugs on backyard trees in the Chula Vista area. We had 6 of these study sites in urban San Diego County. And what these data are showing is that, you know, around September, October, lacebug numbers peak, going into November, December, through the winter into spring, early summer, numbers stay pretty low. Then as temperatures start to drive upwards and it gets warmer, July, August, September or so, lacebug numbers increase. And then moving into October, where we are now, we'd be expecting to see lacebug numbers begin to decline. So these data are from, it's hard to believe, it's 15 years ago now. And they're only taken from a handful of sites in urban San Diego County. And as I'll show you in a minute, the DNA of the population that originally invaded California is different to the DNA of the populations that are outbreaking in the Oceanside, Bonsall, Fallbrook, Temecula area right now. So we'll be moving on to the DNA work, but just to sort of let the cat out of the bag here, California suffered 2 invasions of avocado lacebugs that have come from 2 different areas, and we'll cover that a bit later. So let's go back to that 1908 record of avocado lacebug from Florida. And this was the presumed native range of avocado lacebug, southeastern United States, maybe parts of eastern Mexico here on the Caribbean side, and perhaps the Caribbean islands. This is what the literature was telling us. So since nobody had really done any sort of systematic DNA work on avocado lacebugs, we weren't even sure if this was a species complex, perhaps several different species of lacebug masquerading under the same species name, which were all yellow and black and very hard to morphologically separate. So Phil Phillips and I, we spent quite a bit of time going through these areas, collecting lacebugs, and there was a 2-pronged purpose to that work. We were looking for natural enemies associated with avocado lacebug that may have potential for use in California. And then the second part of that project was to collect material for DNA work that we did with Richard Stouthammer and Paul Rugman Jones here at UC Riverside. This is me in Kingston, Jamaica, collecting avocado lacebugs from backyard plants. Boy, hard. Look how young I look there. I even still got hair on my head. My God, things have changed. Oh, it's depressing looking at these old photos. So way back in 2006, we were doing collections. This is Phil Phillips. Many of you probably remember Phil. Here we are in St. Thomas, again, collecting lacebugs from avocado trees growing in these small orchards and backyards. This tree, you can actually see some of the damage on the leaves here in the background. So we collected all this material. We had DNA fingerprints for the populations from California, and we were hoping to do like the CSI type thing, put all the DNA in, run it through the machines, line it all up, and then get a match. Try and figure out where did California's avocado lacebug population come from, And at the same time, are we dealing with one true species here, or is it a species complex, a bunch of different things masquerading under the same scientific name? They all look the same morphologically, and you can't easily tell them apart based on their coloration or their body morphology, but the DNA could help separate them at the species level. So these magenta dots with the blue rings show the collection sites that we made, Phil and I, through Mexico, into the Yucatan Peninsula. I was working on avocado seed moth down in Guatemala, and I collected material from down there. Phil and I went through the Caribbean. We had colleagues here in the northeastern part of South America to send us in material from French Guiana as well. You can see the list of localities that we collected from here in Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. And we passed all that material over to Paul Rugman-Jones, and he analyzed the DNA for us. So what did all that molecular work reveal? Well, the mitochondrial nuclear markers were used to pinpoint the geographic area of origin. And we could refine that even further by using something that were called microsatellites. And these little bits of DNA were able to sort of line them up from the source populations in the areas that we collected from, and helped us pinpoint with more accuracy where California's population might have originated. So the mitochondrial haplotypes indicated that California's population was related to specimens that we collected from Texas, parts of Mexico like Guerrero, Chiapas, Tabasco, Nayarit, Jalisco, and Michoacan. But the microsatellites, which we could really drill down with to get a more granular or finer perspective, indicated that California's avocado lacebug population that was established in San Diego County in the Chula Vista National City area back in 2004 likely originated from the state of Nayarit, and specifically from one small place called Las Vivosas. And this was a popular tourist spot along the Mexican Riviera. And the DNA also indicated that avocado lacebug from all that area that we collected throughout Mexico, the Caribbean, and South America was all one species. There was no evidence that it was a cryptic species complex. The reason I remember this Las Vivosas collecting locality so clearly was that I collected lacebugs off these small potted plants that were set up just on the other side of a toll that you had to pass through. And this was a great place to have a small place to sell fruit, vegetables, and other things. People had to stop at the toll. Just on the other side, there was a parking area with bathrooms. You get out, stretch your legs, and it's like, oh, yeah, let's buy a little avocado plant to take back to California. That's what I thought when I saw them. So I went running down there and I collected lacebugs off these small potted avocado plants. So one working theory I have is that maybe a Californian in an RV cruising up and down the Mexican Riviera, had great guacamole, amazing experiences in Mexico. It's like, we should get one of those little Mexican avocado plants and plant it in our backyard back home in San Diego. And we can have great avocados and guacamole year round, just like we were having down here in Mexico. Plant gets put in the back of the RV, drive it 1,200 miles back up the coast all the way into San Diego County, plant it in your garden, and you've just introduced a new pest into California. So what else did the molecular work tell us? So that population from Las Vivosas and Nayarit was collected down here. It's about a 2,000 kilometer drive or a 1,300 mile drive all the way up there to San Diego. Possible to do that in an RV if you're on a slow holiday, sort of cruising around. The other thing that was very interesting about the DNA work was that there was very high levels of genetic diversity that came from avocado lacebug populations that were collected on the western side of Mexico. You may recall that the home range or the native area of avocado lacebug was thought to be the eastern side or the Caribbean side over here. However, the DNA work suggested that these populations on the Caribbean side had very low levels of genetic variation, which is suggestive that those populations may have been introduced into that area, possibly from these high genetic diversity areas on the western side of Mexico. And as a consequence, these populations that you're seeing over here in these more tropical humid areas are possibly not native and could probably be invasive as well. And that invasion event probably occurred prior to 1908. So that was quite an interesting result from the DNA work that we were doing. So back in 2017, let's get back to what's happening now. I went out with Enrico and some other guys into the Temecula area. We collected a bunch of material, brought it back to the lab, asked Paul and Richard to run the DNA. And the DNA came back telling us that the populations that we were dealing with now in northern San Diego County and southern Riverside County had a DNA fingerprint that was different to that original population that had established in San Diego in 2004. And the DNA was most similar to material that had come out of this Caribbean side of the collections that we had made way back in the day. And we think that maybe the populations that we're dealing with now originated from Florida and have been accidentally transported into Southern California. Okay, so moving forward again from 2017, sometime around late 2019, there were reports of avocado lacebug infesting avocados in Hawaii. So this sets up another interesting invasion scenario. How did avocado lacebug get to Hawaii? And what type of genetic information do those populations in Hawaii have? So we have sitting in the freezer right now material collected from about 5 islands in Hawaii that we're going to run the DNA analyses on. And I'm really interested in knowing what has happened. Did California possibly export the original 2004 avocado lacebug population from Mexico that originated in Mexico to Hawaii? Has California exported the Florida strain of avocado lacebug that established in 2017? If it did it come from, if that strain is present in Hawaii, did it come from California or did it come directly to Hawaii from Florida? Interestingly, there is one other scenario. Did avocado lacebug come from somewhere else? And should we be concerned about a reverse invasion of a different type of avocado lacebug coming from Hawaii back to California? And if that happened, we'd end up with 3 different types of avocado lacebug with distinct genetic properties being present in the state. So we're going to start working on that, hopefully sometime towards the end of this year, start extracting the DNA from populations we've collected in Hawaii. We have populations from the Fallbrook Temecula area, and we have original material from the 2004 invasion down in southern San Diego County. And that's another question I'm interested in. What has happened to that original Mexican population from Las Vivosas in Chula Vista and National City? Is it still there? Or has it been replaced by this more aggressive Florida strain of avocado lacebug? And hopefully the DNA can answer that question for us as well. Okay, so what are we doing now on avocado lacebug? I'm getting a lot of phone calls about it. I get a lot of email about avocado lacebug. I've talked to Tim Spann and Tom Bellamore at the Avocado Commission, California Avocado Commission, and the CAC and Brokaw Ranch, Brokaw Nursery have provided funding to investigate some of the basic aspects of avocado lacebug biology and ecology. Look, we know so little about this bug and how it's functioning in California. We sort of have to do some real basic work to get a handle on what it's doing here. So we've just brought on a master's student. She's joined the lab and she's going to work on avocado lacebug for us. Towards the end of October, I'm setting up meetings now, probably around the 28th, 29th of October. We're hoping to visit potential study sites in the Oceanside, Fallbrook, Temecula area. And what we want to do is visit those sites once a month, monitor the lacebug populations on Hass avocados and other varieties of avocados that are growing in those orchards, and look for natural enemies that may be associated with avocado lacebug populations. So we want to build some phenology data. How are these populations cycling? Is it similar to what we saw back in 2004 down in San Diego when we just had the Mexican strain of avocado lacebug to worry about? We want to do this DNA work on avocado lacebug to see what's happened in Hawaii and whether California exported lacebugs to Hawaii, or whether there's something new in Hawaii that California should be concerned about coming back this way across the Pacific and establishing here. One thing we've been asked a lot is, what does temperature do to avocado lacebug? If we have heat waves, do they kill off lacebugs like we've seen with Persea mite? We don't really know the answer to that, but we have these fancy temperature cabinets in the lab where we can program them, and we can grow up these lacebugs at different temperatures and figure out what sort of impacts temperature regimes have on avocado lacebug development rates and survivorship rates. And one thing I'm also very interested in, and this sort of goes back to the work that we've done on Persea mite, does avocado lacebug have any cultivar preferences? The original strain from Las Vivosas that established in San Diego County in National City, Chula Vista, wouldn't go on Hass. We couldn't maintain colonies on Hass, but it did great on bacon. Now, the Florida strain that we have in the Fallbrook Temecula Oceanside area seems to be doing great on Hass. So we'd like to take those Temecula Oceanside populations, rear them up on Hass, put some on lamb Hass. I've chosen lamb Hass as a cultivar because we know Persea mite doesn't do so great on that. Maybe avocado lacebug doesn't like lamb Hass either. And gem's a new variety that people are talking about quite a bit. So we'll see what avocado lacebug can do on gem as well. And we'll compare that to Hass and see how these different cultivars stack up as far as avocado lacebug survivorship, development, and those types of lifestyle parameters that we can measure in the lab go. Okay, so we're going to change gears completely now. I'm going to tell you about some work we're doing in the quarantine facility on this very cool looking insect. It's the large avocado seed weevil, Helipus lauri. It's native to Mexico. It's an invasive pest in Colombia. We think it arrived in Colombia when the growers down there were importing seeds out of Mexico that they were growing up to use for rootstocks, and it's turned out to be quite a significant problem in Colombia. And as its name suggests, this insect is a pest of avocado fruit because the female weevils drill holes into the fruit, lay their eggs in those holes, and then when those eggs hatch, the weevil larvae or the grubs bore their way through the pulp and into the seed, and they can do quite a significant amount of damage to the inside of the fruit. So here's a photograph of some of the damage that you're likely to see when you have avocado seed weevils feeding inside a Hass avocado. This is a fruit that I picked in an orchard in Mexico. We've been down there working, collecting these weevils, and I'll get to that in just a minute. So when you cut open the fruit, you see a heavily damaged seed, a lot of damage to the pulp, and I've extracted the larva from that seed so you can see it sitting here in the pulp. So untreated Hass orchards in Mexico, some of the published literature suggests that you can lose about 30% of your fruit to avocado seed weevils. In Colombia, they can lose about 6 to 8% of the fruit in heavily managed Hass orchards. So it's quite a significant pest, even when it's subjected to intensive insecticide management programs. So the CDFA, California Department of Food and Agriculture, has been running a proactive biological control and IPM program. And in partnership with the California Avocado Commission, we made a pitch that, we should be looking south of the border to protect California's avocado industry from potential pests that could come into the state at some time in the future. And we've done this work before. One of the first pests we went after was the avocado seed moth, Stenoma catanifa. And we did some really good work on that. We got the sex pheromone for that moth so we can monitor for it. And we've figured out the natural enemy fauna associated with that pest. So should avocado seed moth show up in California, next week, we've got the tools that we need to monitor and manage it. And if we wanted to begin a biological control program, I know exactly where to go to collect those natural enemies, and I know the species of natural enemies that we are looking for. So this proactive approach would save us years of time. We could basically jump on the avocado seed moth problem tomorrow if it showed up here. We wouldn't be losing 3 years while we do the foreign exploration, figure out the natural enemies. What is the pheromone? How do you use the pheromone? How do you deploy the pheromone in the field? We've done all that work, and it was all completed in Guatemala, and we've run similar trials in Mexico. So we feel pretty confident that what we've figured out for avocado seed moth is pretty good. And we want to replicate a similar program for the avocado seed weevil. So the goals of the proactive weevil project have been to get the pheromone. So in February of 2020, Yeah, that's a long time ago now. Spent a couple of weeks with colleagues down in Mexico, went through commercial Hass avocado orchards in the Coatepec area, collected a lot of infested fruit, reared out the weevils in the quarantine facility here at UC Riverside. I had the special permits from the USDA to bring the material back. And we were able to put the adult weevils into these aeration jars, and we were able to collect the aggregation pheromone. We've figured out the chemistry for that. So fingers crossed, all going well. February of next year, the program will kick off again. So we've sort of been shut down because of COVID and travel restrictions, and we can begin testing these pheromone blends in the field to see how effective they are at bringing in the weevils to traps. And this will give us a tool not only for monitoring the weevil, but possibly if we had a high density trapping program running, we could trap them out or even use them as a pheromone confusion system. The other thing we've been doing in the quarantine lab have been figuring out how far can the avocado seed weevil fly. And to do that, we hook them up to these little machines called flight mills. And when the weevil flies around, it goes in a circle. Each circle is 3 feet. The computer records how often it's flying, how fast it's flying, whether it's flying during the day and the night. We can run experiments to look at old weevils, young weevils, mated weevils, unmated weevils, males versus females. So we have all those data collected right now. I'm actually analyzing them, and we're writing up a scientific paper on this. So to cut to the chase, these weevils can fly a couple of kilometers in a day, maybe a mile at the most, mile and a half. They are also capable of flying multiple times during their lifetime. And I was able to fly a handful of these weevils up to 12 times before they just finally petered out. We had some weevils that could fly maybe 3, 4, 5 miles in a single day, but those types of weevils were uncommon. Most of them were flying around, half, 3/4 mile, mile and a half. Why are these data important? Why do we want to know, whether these weevils can fly and how far they can fly? Well, if we found an infestation in California, one of the things we'd have to set up would be quarantine boundaries, monitoring programs. What would be the distances between the traps? If we know what the flight capabilities of these weevils are, we can use those scientific data to come up with, well-reasoned monitoring and quarantine plans to try and contain an invasion should we detect it in California. So having a good understanding of the flight capabilities of these weevils, pretty important, I think. We've also been investigating in quarantine some basic aspects of weevil development and their biology. I'm going to touch on a little bit in that just a minute because they have some really weird stuff that they do. And one thing we did with Mary Lou Arpaia, her and Eric provided a bunch of different avocado varieties, and I'd put them in the cages, and we would look to see whether or not avocado weevils had a preference when they could choose from different types of avocado fruit. Did they have a preference for, one cultivar over another? And we'll get to some of those results in just a minute. Just got a couple of slides left to go. Seed weevil biology. This was really interesting. Female weevils can lay up to 17 eggs in one hole that they drill. That's really uncommon. Most of the time, they just lay 1 egg per hole. This happens about 30% of the time, but about 70% of the time, there are 2 or more eggs in those holes. So for example, they'll lay 2 eggs in a hole about 19% of the time. Sometimes a female might put 4 eggs in a hole. That'll happen about 11% of the time. So what I did was I took these larvae when they hatched out from the eggs and I put them in a petri dish. So you can see 5 healthy larvae sort of here and sitting in a little pile. And I was curious, if you only get 1 adult weevil that hatches out of an egg, out of a seed, you almost always only get 1 adult weevil. But if females are laying more than 1 egg in those fruit, what happens to the other weevil larvae? And what happens to the other weevil larvae is that one dominates and eats everybody else. So you can see this fat survivor here. These brown spots that you see here are the head capsules, and the mush here are the chewed up bodies that the winner here has consumed. So when you have more than 1 weevil larva in an oviposition hole, and they hatch out at about the same time because those eggs were all laid by 1 female, probably within a few minutes of each other, 1 weevil larva will eat the rest of them. So you can see here, healthy weevil, head capsules, big fat white body, all stretched out. Come back the next morning, 1 fat one, and just a bunch of heads lying in the petri dish because he or she ate everybody else. So once you get the weevil larva into the seed, they take about 3 months or so to develop, complete the development, 9 to 10 weeks, depending on the temperature. And you almost always just get one adult weevil that will pupate within the seed, choose a circular hole, and then pops out of the seed. Interestingly, it doesn't matter how big that seed is, the weevil sizes are all very consistent. It looks like avocado seeds, at least with cultivated Hass, are all approximately the same size, more or less, and that those weevils will consume around 4 to 5 grams of a seed, and then they've finished their development. The seed itself weighs a lot more than 4 to 5 grams, but that's all the weevils need to complete their development. So you don't get like giant weevils hatching out of really big Hass avocado seeds. They just need about 4 to 5 grams of seed to complete the development, and then they pop out. So I thought that was interesting. There's a lot of literature published on insects that the more they eat, the bigger the host, the bigger the insect that hatches out of it. That doesn't seem to be true for avocado seed weevil. I have a huge data set on this. So do they show any preferences for different fruit varieties? So here on campus, I was able to pick bacon and Hass. Mary Lou gave me lamb Hass and gem. Up here near the herbarium, there was a weird avocado. I thought it was a reed originally, but Mary Lou tracked down the planting plan up there, and it's something called a Guatemalan G22, which was collected, you know, way back, I think by Zentmeyer, way back in the day. And those Guatemalan varieties are still up there. So basically what I do is in the cage with adult weevils, I just put these fruit, 2, 3 of each fruit, leave them for a couple of days, come back, and then see where the weevils had laid their eggs. And to make sure that the fruit were all of, you know, sort of equal oiliness and maturity, we took their dry weights. Mary Lou explained to me how to do that. Statistics suggested that at the time of year I was doing this, the dry weights for all these fruit were pretty much similar. So if you consider dry weight as a metric that, yeah, they're all similar, therefore they should all be equally palatable to the weevil, that's what those data were telling us. Weevils seem to like all the fruit approximately equally well, except perhaps the strange G22. This fruit is basically all seed in the middle and very little pulp around the outside. It's like a cannonball. And as it dries out, and it desiccates, you can basically pop it because there's very little flesh between, or pulp between the skin and the seed. And that may be one reason why the weevils didn't like it so much. Okay, so I'll wrap it up there. If you need any more information on avocado lacebug, there's a couple of websites you can go to. And I think this has been recorded so you can get these, or if you've got your phones, you can just snap a photograph of the screen now if you want those website addresses to go to, or you can just go Avocado Lacebug, California, UCR, and I'm sure that'll probably bring it up as well. Okay, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those for you. These are the classic penny shots that give you an idea of the size of the insect in relation to a US penny. All right, I'm done. If there's time for questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Or like John was saying earlier, if you want to email me your questions, I'm happy to answer them that way as well. Oops, I'm trying to turn off my laser pointer here. There we go. All right. Leo, oh, there you go.
Hey,
somebody's still there. I see
Mark,
one face.
excellent presentation as always.
Thank you.
We really thank you very much. Avocado lacebug. I was shocked that it's become more tenacious than we thought as a PCA. Do you think we will have any beneficial insects in the near future to attack this?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And you know, all the survey work Phil and I did through the Caribbean and through Florida suggested, and the eastern parts of the Yucatan in Mexico suggested very strongly that there were no really effective egg parasitoids associated with that pest. We sent back thousands of eggs that we collected to the quarantine facility. We reared nothing out of them. And in Florida, there is a small egg parasitoid. It's a trichogrammatid. but the attack rates are like 1 to 3% on avocado lacebug eggs, not very effective. However, in Guatemala, where I was collecting them from avocados, there were a variety called Booth that were grown in the Escuintla area, which is very hot and humid down there. Feels just like you've walked through the doors of hell. go down the volcano, the steep mountains down into Escuintla. It's so hot and steamy. What was associated with high density avocado lacebug populations on those trees was a predatory thrips called Franklinothrips vespiformis. We have a closely related species here, Franklinothrips erizabensis. And what we may pick up in the survey work, once we get these studies going, we may see a response by some of these generalist predators to these avocado lacebugs, you know, maybe the young nymphs, especially when they hatch out of the eggs. And I think a big problem that natural enemies will be facing is that black sticky tar goop that they spread over the eggs when they're laying them. I mean, that stuff is really quite nasty, you know, and I could see a small natural enemy like an egg parasitoid having a lot of difficulty getting through that goop to get to the egg. You know, maybe that's one question we'll be able to answer with this work is, you know, where does that goop come from? What is it exactly? Yeah, so I'm not overly optimistic that we're going to have an incredible natural enemy response to this pest based on what we've seen in the supposed native areas where this insect has come from.
Okay, great. Do you see any other questions on there you want to answer at this time, or what do we got?
I can see in the chat. Let me have a look.
No, in the Q&A. You can go to the Q&A.
Oh yeah,
we're
got it.
asking
Yes,
people-
yes, yep. Q&A, here we go. Oh, I need to scroll down. In just a second.
We see.
Are we
box-
looking for cooperators in Duluth and Temecula? Yes, we are. I have a few lined up. If you would like to email me with an offer of an orchard, especially with Hass, a mixed orchard with, you know, say lamb Hass planted in there, maybe some gin. If you're a low input IPM person who's not spraying heavily, we would have populations to monitor. Yes, please email me. Would be very interested in swinging by to have a look. The damage in Fallbrook and Chula Vista, yes, very similar, even though it's on different cultivars. However, I would say that the original damage that we saw on those bacon varieties in people's backyards in Chula Vista was much more substantial than what we have seen on Hass with the Florida variety of avocado lacebug. So, but, you know, we'll be looking into that. The master student, Paloma, who's just joined the lab, this is how amazing technology is now. And this is something we're hoping to be able to get to the industry, is that you can use your cell phone. You can put apps on your cell phone, which you can snap a photograph of an avocado leaf. And there's a program called Leaf Bite, which will tell you what percentage of area has been damaged by avocado lacebug feeding. So we're going to be looking at the relationships between different avocado varieties, lacebug feeding damage during the time of year, and whether or not you reach a critical level of feeding damage that causes defoliation. Way back when we started working with Posea mite, we were using these flatbed scanners and a huge desktop computer to scan the leaves, run these incredibly slow, clunky, hard to program software to measure leaf damage on Posea mite damaged avocado leaves. And the data were telling us that once you get to like 10 to 15% of the leaf has been damaged, the probability of the tree shedding that leaf increased. We don't see that now. It seems like the trees have become more tolerant to Posea mite feeding damage, or the feeding damage itself is not as intense as it used to be. But we want to see if there's a relationship with avocado lacebug feeding damage to percentage area leaf damage and whether or not it induces premature defoliation. So yeah, a lot going on. And if we can tell you guys, you can actually go out and monitor it yourself using your phone. You can get an idea of whether or not you're getting close to damage that would require treatment. I mean, these apps are amazing now. It's on your phone. You don't need a flatbed scanner or a desktop computer to do this stuff anymore. It's incredible. All right. No other questions. Maybe everybody's fallen asleep. We've gone off for lunch.
I think you probably answered all the questions.
At home eating lunch, watching Netflix with me babbling away in the background.
Answered all the questions during your presentation.
All right, well, that's good. Great.
And you are right, this is being recorded, and we are going to have the recording up on the CaliforniaAvocadoSociety.org's website. Give us about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We're a volunteer organization, so it may take a short while.
Yeah,
And
that's
again,
great.
thank you. Keep up the good work. We appreciate everything you do for us.
Thank you. Look, I really appreciate being invited to speak to the Avocado Society. You know, we've had a long, productive relationship over the years, so it's always great to get an invite to come and share what we're doing with you guys. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, Mark, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
And another thank you is, as you see, I'm now wearing my Mission avocado hat, and Mission Produce has been a phenomenal sponsor of the society. When we started the foundation membership, they signed up for it before we even had it named. Great group. The past president, Scott Scarborough, really helped the organization, was great to help. And a little tip for those of you that listen to podcasts, I love their podcast, talking that they have, it's called For Love of Avocados. It's really well done. It gives you a marketing side, gives you a little cultural side, and it's just fun to listen to. They have questions from people outside of the industry, and very well done. So again, Mission Produce, thank you for sponsoring us. Our next speaker is also from Chile. Gerardo Aldunate did not make fun of me when I also could not pronounce his university's name. He is an agronomist and a consultant. He has recently participated in writing the book, The Avocado Botany, Production and Uses. You should check out his recorded seminar on indexfresh.com, Managing Large Avocado Crops. Very good presentation. And with that, Gerardo, it's all yours.
And folks, we're actually going to start with a quick video before Gerardo takes the mic. So enjoy this video of MIMAKI Ranch.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Leo? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. No problem at all, right?
Okay, okay. Thank you for having me here and for this opportunity. Thank you, California Avocado Society. Okay, I would like to start with a brief introduction. Now we are seeing the MIMAKI Ranch. They are 20 acres, spacings 6 feet by 14 feet. They are between 6 to 7 years old trees. It's for sure it's a high density. You know, the high density is a relative concept. It's different in different countries. My first visit there was spring 2019. Spring 2019 was my first visit. I will tell you what I found in that visit in my presentation. Now you are seeing from 2019, 2 years pruning. Yeah, 2 years the tree has they have been pruned. There you see the tree. You can very important. You can see the rows between trees. There is something very interesting. You can see the windbreaks. It's a bamboo windbreaks. Bamboo windbreaks. The species Bambusa oldami. Bambusa oldami is I saw before that in Australia, New Zealand, in other crops using like windbreaks. Very interesting, very interesting. You know, the bamboo have the characteristics to be flexible, and probably that characteristics is you can improve, and I think people have seen, especially really strong winds, more than 60 miles per hour, that really the bamboo is supporting that, and for sure is protecting the trees. Probably that combination, flexible, mix the semi-solid or solid wind breaks, advantage. I think it could be very interesting to look at. And this drip irrigation, all the ranch is on drip irrigation, 2 lines per row, okay, 2 lines per row, 0.4 gallons per hour, 0.4 gallons per hour, and the spacing between dripper is 18 inches. The irrigation, general irrigation during summer is between 3 to 4 times per week, and irrigation time between 3 to 4 hours. Okay. And I think it's here you can see. Just look the shape of the tree. The tree is a open tree. You probably saw some hole on the tree. I mean, it's important, but I will be deeper in my presentation to tell about that. Okay. Let me share. I think okay. Okay. You can see the presentation. Can you see, Leo? Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
No problem at all.
Okay, probably most of the people I know it's not the best moment of the day. It's lunchtime, but I will try to do this more entertaining. And I'm here in Chile. We are close to the tea time. It's okay. Let me put this. Okay. Really very, very important. I told you my first visit there was spring 2019. The concept that we discussed that time are, here is a summary. You have to, I say that grower, and I say the people there, you have to always to consider that first, the tree, the shape of the tree, the size of the tree, naturally, is not the tree that we want. What we want? We want a small tree, friendly tree, easy to pick, easy to harvest, with good crop, good quality, but naturally, the avocado tree is not like that, okay? And thinking in that, our first goal, our first idea has to be, how can we control, how can we get benefit of this tree, okay? And one of the main questions when you are in the beginning of the design of your trees or your farms is spacing or density, different concept. We could have the same amount of tree with different spacing, okay? And I told you here was 6 by 14 feet. It's a high density. I think it's a high density there. But it's very important to have in mind that that means, okay, the tree naturally will grow, just grow. An avocado tree was designed from the evolution, was designed to compete for light. And what happened when I put an avocado tree close to the other avocado tree? Is it immediately start the competition for light, okay? that is other thing that is really, really important. The avocado tree grow and fruit in cycles. In cycles, that means, okay, if we grow and fruit in cycles, any management, any labor, for sure that I'm doing now, I will have consequence next year. Okay, you have to consider that. If you look this, and the other thing, the trees must continue to increase in size to remain productive. Why? You know that. Spring flush, summer flush, sometimes some fall flush, and we know spring flush is really very important to replace the overwinter leaves, because we know during flowering, the trees, the flowers, and the small fruit, the new fruit, they are taking a lot of energy. And then the summer shoot. Why are important the summer shoot? The summer shoot is the fruiting wood for next season. And it's important to give the new crop enough energy for size, for fruit size male. I'm thinking in that. I have avocado tree. I need grow every year, probably I will say around 3 feet annually. And I have to consider that when I'm taking the decision of density of spacing, okay? That is really very, very important. You have to keep your trees growing if you want good crop and good quality, but in the right place and under control, okay? Thinking in that, there is rules that I have to consider. One of the main for me, and probably you have heard many times about that. The height of the tree shouldn't exceed 70 to 80% of the distance between rows. That is really very, very important. That you saw in the video. Was easy to see space, was easy to see light reaching the ground between rows, was easy. That's really very, very important. We have to avoid that the top of the neighbor tree shade the bottom of the other tree. That is really very, very important. And we have to see light reaching the ground between rows. I will say at least 30%. At least 30% of the distance between rows has to be completely open for light, okay? And the other thing that is really very important, no part of the tree canopy should be more than 6.5 feet to 8 feet from direct sunlight. That you have to consider that. For sure, wilder tree, taller tree will be more difficult to keep every limb, every section of the tree, no more than 6.5 to 8 feet from direct sunlight. It's really, you have to include that. You know, in my experience, after 20 years working with many, many growers, different countries, always the big discussion is pruning. And the big discussion is, the big question, is what I have to do here, okay? And always my first answer is, what do you think before to plant these trees? What do you think? What kind of tree you had in mind? What kind of size, okay? That is really very, very, very important. More than 90% of the success in your tree design is the decision, is the discussion before to plant the trees. It's really very, very important. Before to plant your trees, you have to know what kind of tree, what will be the design of your trees, okay? And all the labor, all the practices has to be in the same way to achieve that, okay? You know, high density, I told you, is a relative concept. High density is completely different in Mexico, in Colombia, in Chile, probably Chile is close to California. But what was the beginning of that? The beginning of that was, okay, especially in hills, for sure we need small trees, friendly trees, easy to pick, easy to spray, and for sure, more trees, we could get the money earlier than low density. That is sure, makes sense. But probably most of us forgot that it's important to maintain this the labor, the practices to keep enough light in every side of the tree, And I think most of us forgot that because the idea was to try to get, to get earlier the income, to improve the income the first 2-3 years. But after the first 2-3 years of production, so far, it's really difficult. It's really difficult to maintain that, especially when you mix the canopy management, with harvest, with the market, waiting better price, waiting to improve the size, really difficult. And finally, most of the high densities and low densities, for sure, medium densities, finally, the most of it was difficult to keep the tree size, and most of them look crowded or shade. And that is important to mention because in high density, the timely is critical. The timely is critical. Why? I told you, the tree needs room for growth. And I told you, spring flash, summer flash. Okay, we need both. It's important to prune in high density. It's important to prune early during the season. It's really very, very important. But I told you, always there is a conflict. Always there is a conflict with harvest. But you have to think in that. If you like to go to high density, you have to start especially the pruning, the canopy management, early in the season. You cannot delay harvest because if you delay harvest, you will affect the pruning, and the pruning could be late, won't be enough time to get a really very good mature, enough time for the summer for the summer flush to arrive, to fall, enough hard enough, enough mature, ready for flower. You have to think in that. It's really very, very important. Canopy management involves pruning, main pruning, selecting limb removal, one side every second row, one side every row, both sides every 2 rows. Whatever. I mean, I always say my growers, I don't like to lose too much time to discuss about what will be the best, the way. Because when you start, if you took a wrong decision, but when you start repruning, always you are seeing benefit. Always you are seeing benefit. Very, very important after the main pruning. Regrow control, regrow management, regrow maintenance. I have seen really good grower, good pruning, good main pruning without regrow control. After one season, no result. No result, nothing. We could see the same tree again, the same size. It's really very, very important. You have to include that in your expenses for sure. After the main pruning, regrow control. Okay, and for sure, in my point of view, canopy management involve girdling. So far, the only tool really is a strong tool. And I cannot say it's the best tool, but it really is a strong tool. For me, it's an insurance, okay? For me, it's an insurance. If I removing part of the tree, I would like to, for sure, I would like to be 100% sure that in the rest of the canopy, I will get flower. That is the main reason that I use the girdling. Some of the, in the Consuelo presentation, there was a question about why you are using girdling in young trees. If your decision was high density, for sure you have to use girdling. Why? Consuelo say that the best way to keep the tree under control is fruit. It's not pruning. It's fruit. If your decision was to use more than 500 trees per acre or 600 trees per acre are really high density, you have to enjoy that. And the best way to enjoy that is using girdling from the beginning, from the beginning of the production of the tree. I remember with one grower in California, the first girdling was, I remember that, the first girdling was a high density. The first girdling was 6 months after planted, 6 months, okay? That's really very, very important, okay? Here you can see the spring flash and summer flash. You can see the size. We need room we need room to have a very good, healthy spring and summer flash. The design, thinking in the spacing of MIMAKI Ranch, 6 feet by 14. Here you can see the design. 70–80% of the distance between the road, maximum height. At least 30% of the inter-row space has to be completely open. That you see here, okay, we have with the bottom, no more than 10 feet width. And for sure, probably you have heard about pyramidal shape, Christmas tree shape. I say the bottom of the tree has to be wider than the top of the tree, okay? We have to avoid to have long limbs in the upper part of the tree that are shading the bottom of the tree, okay? And if you see the row, what is the idea? To keep individual trees, okay? Individual trees, because I like to use and I like to increase my production surface using the 4 sides of the tree, not just only 2 like a hedgerow. In my experience, I have seen, thinking in a hedgerow, this amount of lead cannot compensate this both sides getting light from the production point of view, okay? And what I found in MIMAKI Ranch, I found this in September 2019. I found this, that was the design, and I found a tree taller than the design, wider than the design, limbs growing into the interrow space, taller, completely inside, completely dark, no light, was only, I remember, only I saw wood, no leaves. And if you remember the video, now you can see only leaves. It's difficult to see wood. That is the idea. We need leaves. We need growth for production. No wood, no wood. And that I found in 2019. Okay, that I found in 2019. And I found, I forget to tell you, and I found the production in 2019, was 15 beans per acre, okay? And the production before 2018 was 7 beans per acre. Big alternate bearing, big alternate bearing. And the estimation, because the trend, the alternate crop on year off year was really strong. The production in 2020 was only 9 beans after pruning. Okay, after the pruning, 9 beans. Okay, and you have to know, in a crowded situation, when you start the pruning, for sure next year will be lower from the production point of view. But 2021 was 19 beans production of this year, 19 beans per acre. And the estimation for 2022 is 16 beans, okay? 16 beans per acre. That is really good in high density, okay? That is really good in high density because, you know, I told you, keep production in high density means intensive work, intensive pruning, and it's really good. I'm very happy if we finally we could harvest in 2022 this amount of beans per acre. That will be almost no alternate crop. Here you can see, I told you, you have to keep this open. The sunlight had to reach the ground. That means you can see leaves from the top of the tree to the bottom of the tree, completely full of production surface, completely possibility, look the potential. Before there was only branches, only wood, okay? Here you can see the regrowth control. Here you can see the regrowth control. You can see some of the structure before that was completely dark, no growth, no production. Now the tree is recovering. That is the idea. And for sure, I like to have this kind of growth because the fruit here is really very close to the main trunk, very close to the root system. That means for sure easy to pick and for sure bigger fruit. That is really nice. You can see here the regrowth that is ready and for sure will be ready, for example, to do some girdling and to try to put flower here. Okay, to try to put flower here and after harvest, if there is fruit here, to do the high control. Okay. We use girdling. I told you, for me, canopy management means pruning, regrowth control, and girdling for sure, because I have to, I would like to be always sure that I will have flower in the rest of the canopy, okay? I say my grower in my presentation, I say, after 20 years, I don't want to hear more complaints. I don't want to hear the question, Gerardo, why there is not flower, okay? And for me, I prefer the other concern. Look, it's too much flower. There is no leaves, no problem. We can do anything, but no flower, nothing. Okay, anything to do, nothing. Okay, You can see the effect of the girdling. Okay, that is really good. That is really good. Okay. After to finish, I would like to say that in California, compared to other countries, I've seen really very good results on pruning, girdling, in general, some changes in irrigation, especially increasing the frequency instead of low frequency and long irrigation. You have to control for sure the fertilization. There is really good information there helping to adjust the timing of the fertilization, especially the nitrogen. And I think, but I can see the same problem. I can see the same big mistake. And the big mistake is really late decision. It's too late decision. And for sure, late decision means expensive. It's really, and compare early decision, you know, pruning a young tree, pruning a young avocado tree, the tree, I told you, the tree naturally grow. The tree naturally grow. I mean, the mistake that you could make in the beginning, really, you won't see any mistake. The big mistake is to delay the decision. That is the really big mistake, okay? Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I will be happy to answer all the questions. Thank you, Leo. You told me no more than 20 minutes, and I think, I don't know, 15 to 20 minutes, and I think I am in my turn.
That was great. That was fantastic. Again, we're going to try to limit the questions to 4 because people will be asking questions all day. I just read one from the Q&A from Anonymous. What do you think about planting in a diamond?
Planting, let me see the question. Where is
It's
planting in a...
next to the bottom from Anonymous. It says, would planting in a diamond help provide more light?
The diamond space, yeah, sure. I say overlap the road, okay. But I like the idea. I like the idea to planting diamond or overlap the road. For sure, it's more distant between the rows. I like the idea. I like that.
Excellent.
The Krist, when dealing with tree on burns, how do you measure that 70–80% of the high row width from the base of the barn or the tree? Good question. Always is a big discussion. If you in your design, you have to measure from the base of the burn, not the tree. But that is the reason. That is one of the reasons. It's a really good question. That is one of the reasons that here in Chile we started to make really high and big burns. I remember, and after that we started to see, look, 1 meter. I mean 3 feet high a burn, and sometimes more. And if I look in the tree. The tree look really very small sometimes compared the burn. Okay, you have to start the design of your height for sure from the base of the burn. But in my opinion, you need at least minimum high. I would say from the production point of view, I will say no less than 10 feet high. Okay. The other question is how many branches in percentage of each that are girdling? Okay, the percentage, I will say no less than 50% of the canopy. Always a semi-grower, 50% of the canopy. Okay. I remember you have when you decide what limb you will do the girdling, you have to keep below the girdling, okay, below the girdling, lateral growth, feeding the root system, okay? One of the collateral effect of the girdling is root starvation, and we have to avoid that, okay? Normally, I will say in general, like average, I always like to spread the girdling. I don't like the idea just to get 50% of the canopy just in one girdling, just in one limb. That is not the idea. I always like to spread. I mean, instead of in one limb 50%, I would like to take 20%, another limb, other 20%, and finally 10 or 15%. I will say no less than 2 to 3 limbs. I will say that you have to spread. You have to avoid root starvation, and one of the things to avoid that is spread the girdling, not in one limb. Okay, does the long-term increase in root volume affect the availability to maintain the tree site? Good question. I will say if you are thinking to put your trees under, I mean, pruning, using girdling, and really try to force your tree to get a really good crop. Always alive for me, the root system is the control room, and I prefer to stop the tree with production. And for sure, plan B with pruning, instead of to reduce the volume for root growth. I cannot see. I mean, without control, with a big amount of soil, a big root volume, for sure you will have big trees. But I like that because I need that energy that the root system is given to the upper part of the tree to use in the right way for production. Okay.
Gerardo, would you like to give your business's email address so people can ask more questions? Because I see more and more questions coming on here.
Okay, there is no problem. Let me show in my first slide. Is there my email? But I will write in the chat.
Oh, perfect, right there.
No problem.
Okay.
No problem. But I will write my email in the chat. No problem. Okay.
Excellent. Again,
okay.
Fantastic presentation. It's so much to learn, and we really appreciate you coming all the way from Chile to give us this presentation today.
You're very welcome, Leo, and again, thank you for the opportunity. Leah, thank you for your support. Okay.
Great. With that, we have one more sponsor to talk about as we're going through, another foundation sponsor, Nutrien Ag Products. Those of you that know me know that I'm very fond of Nutrien. Excellent company. They are cutting edge farm supply company. The technology they're using is amazing. I believe they are worldwide. I'm not sure what the names are. I know they've got 13 stores in Australia. I believe they have some stores in New Zealand. I know they have an operation in South Africa. I don't know if it's called what it's called, but a heck of an organization. They've really supported the society. They cover all the growing areas in California for sure. For those of you that aren't familiar with the name Nutrien, you're probably more familiar with CPS, Crop Production Services. They've changed and rebranded, and heck of an organization. So great. With that, let's move to a pre-recorded message from Dr. Ben Faber. Ben is in charge of seminars for CAS, and he does a phenomenal job. I don't know what we would do without him. He puts together the seminars. As soon as this meeting is finished, he is going to start sending us recommendations for next year's annual meeting. I just can't believe how great he is. So with that, Leah, would you like to queue up Ben's presentation of the Award of Honor?
Okay, our annual award this year goes to Darrell Nelson. Although he passed away Saturday, March 6, 2021 of this year, his legacy will live on in the contribution he has made to family, the community, agriculture, and the avocado industry in particular. His wife Jeannie is here to accept the award with our gratitude. And so this is the award of honor that we're giving to Darrell, and Jeannie's accepting it. And I wanted to just read a little bit about the background that Darrell has and what he's contributed to the industry. Darrell was born into a family in North Dakota in 1942, one of 11 children of Earl and Henry Nelson. The family moved to Colusa, California, from where he moved on to high school, the Army, and completed a bachelor's degree at UC Davis in soils and water science, of all things. From there, with his degree and his new family, he moved to Santa Paula, where he began work as a field assistant for Fruit Growers Lab, as a bench assistant, and then rose through the ranks to become president. So he's made significant milestones and changes, made a very successful industry out of analyzing soils and water and tissue. One of the great contributions he made was moving into the environmental and water analysis, just when it was becoming really important. And the new technologies that he introduced really helped improve the agricultural industry as well. The firm's growth was improved by his belief in keeping and supporting fruit growers personnel. And during his presidency, the sales went from $1 million to $12 million, from a small staff to nearly 100, from one office here in Santa Paula to 5 throughout California. And he retired in 2004, becoming the chair of the Fruit Growers Lab Board of Directors. Always the farmer, he established Nelson Farming and Consulting, a farm management company supporting citrus and avocado growers. And like many of his endeavors at Fruit Growers Lab, this also proved to be successful. He ended up managing 1,200 acres. Well, it's an ongoing company that's managing 1,200 acres of citrus and avocados in the area. Darrell's model was simple. He started with soil tissue, irrigation water, and created a management plan. His emphasis was on good water structure, infrastructure and scheduling, and good fertilizer management and pruning, as well as good housekeeping. He loved agriculture. It was his passion. He believed in science and the importance of continued research in agriculture. He supported me. He supported the University of California at Riverside. He supported Cal Poly. He supported students, any students, high school students anyone who was interested in agriculture. His contributions to the avocado industry in particular were many. He improved the reporting and quality assurance of the Ag Lab. In fact, the reports that he put out from fruit growers were easily understood by any grower, which was a real achievement, because normally it was a lot of mumbo jumbo. He understood and shared the needs for integrating irrigation, nutrient management, and tree health for developing a fertility program. Actually, he was really a good teacher. He taught me a lot. From 2000 on, Darrell volunteered in various capacities for the California Avocado Commission, mainly with the Production Research Committee, and he was chair of that from 2005 to 2010. Rick Shade, who is the former Avocado Commission chair, summarized his contributions to the avocado industry as Darrell Nelson was the South Coast's modern-day Renaissance man. He dragged, pushed, pulled, and prodded many of us, kicking and screaming into the 20th century. Those of us who listened were ushered intelligently into the 21st century. Darrell did not suffer fools well, but intelligent folks knew when to listen, when to ask questions, and when to be quiet. I had the pleasure to chair the California Avocado Commission while Darrell chaired the Avocado Production Research Committee. I firmly believe that some of the finest work done by the PRC was done under his chairmanship. And this is from several growers' comments. One said, "I am forever grateful that he was willing to take the time to teach me, and I only wish I could have learned much better." And then from all growers, Darrell was one of the best sources of information for everything related to growing avocados and citrus. He will be missed. So this year's award goes to Darrell. Thank you very much.
Thank you. He would have just been so proud.
Yes, and we were proud of him.
If I can add to Ben's presentation, I had the privilege of working with Darrell, and he had a large customer in Temecula, and he'd send me all the raw leaf analysis, and I'd write the programs, and I knew he'd be working late at night during leaf analysis season. So at 9 o'clock one evening, I called Darrell and I said, "Darrell, you got to recalibrate all your equipment, man. The last 5 leaf analysis I've done have potassium deficiencies, and those groves didn't have potassium deficiencies last year." And Darrell goes, "You had a big crop last year, Leo. You need to recalibrate your mind, not my equipment. Potassium is needed for avocados." And just like Ben said, I mean, the guy was just a wealth of information. We had these predetermined ideas about avocados, and he helped us to realize we were wrong. So great things to say about Darrell. Our last sponsor I'd like to present today, last but not least, is Westpac Avocado. Excellent organization. They've been a foundation member since the foundation's members have started. They've let us have field reps on our board. Right now, Nick Lair is on our board, and he does an excellent job. So I appreciate Westpac. And for any of those of you that have not friended Westpac on Facebook, you need to do it. Excellent page. It's always about marketing around the world, and you'll love it. With that, I'm going to introduce Leah. Leah has been the Wizard of Oz today behind the window. You've done a heck of a job, Leah. People don't realize that this is the first time you've ever done a Zoom meeting for this many people, and you're doing a great job. You're learning as you're going, and thank you. She is going to introduce Gordon Kimball today. Leah's also our writer of the Newsline and the Quarterly, and she wrote a really good article about Kimball Ranch, and so no one better to introduce Gordon Kimball. Go ahead, Leah.
Thanks, Leo. Leo made an error in that last statement. The Kimballs really wrote that article. They did such a great job. Really thoroughly answered our questions and invited my daughter and I, who was stuck at home with me for COVID, on a tour of the ranch, and we had such a great time. So Gordon Kimball of Kimball Ranches, El Hogar. He owns the ranch with his wife, Nancy, and his sister, Margaret. And now they are working with Gordon and Nancy's daughter, Rachel, who helps to manage the ranch. It's located in Santa Paula, and it has 105 acres of avocados growing. I don't think that's changed since the last update. But what's really fascinating and what we're gonna learn more about today is that the Thomas Fire of 2017 just tore through this property and ultimately burned 66 acres, which included Gordon and Nancy's house. So we are gonna learn about what recovery has looked like on that ranch, and I will turn it over to Gordon. Actually, I will turn it over to a quick video made by Ken Melvin of the California Avocado Commission. So bear with me here while I share my screen and get that going.
Okay.
this is a video of the ranch.
Oh, sorry guys. Gordon, the audio on the video is pretty loud.
Okay.
So I apologize. I'm gonna see if I can lower that, but if not, you might want to hold your comments till the end of that.
Okay.
Okay, you want to give it a shot, Gordon?
Okay, so this is a video of the ranch. You can see examples of the fire damage here.
Uh-oh.
There we go.
Oh. Okay, that's that.
All right. Thank you. Okay, I will share my screen. Yep. Okay, so this is a map of the ranch, sort of from south to north. The bulk of the ranch is here, and we have a block, or block 12 up here. And this is a aerial of the ranch before the fire. The original ranch was planted in the 70s. It was mostly planted to Hass. Block 3 was originally planted to Pinkertons, and in the early 2000s, we grafted it to Hass after the price for Pinkerton stayed at 60 cents a pound when Hass was $1. And as the trees got older, the production declined. So we grafted them to Hass. In '96, we suffered a little damage in the Grand Fire. And in recovering from that fire, we chose not to replant, but to replant only the trees that totally died. And a lot of the trees, probably 70–80%, sprouted suckers from the rootstock, and we grafted those to Hass. Those trees regrew. They came back in production sooner that way, but they never seemed to have the production that they did before the fire. So, and let me say that this production, this description or this presentation is a little different than the ones you've seen before, in that with 60% of the orchard or the trees in the orchard suffering catastrophic damage, either dying or either dead or dying, or will die in the future, we were faced with a pretty significant economic challenge. And so the guiding principle was, how do we survive financially for the next 25 years while we replace the damaged trees and they come back into production, and then break even and financially finally into sort of back where we were before the fire. So the next slide, please. So the first thing we did was try to figure out how bad the damage was. And fortunately, we had maps of the orchard, because although the orchard is a typical hillside planting, only the small block, what we call block 1, was planted on contours. The rest of it was planted straight lines. So we had a map which was basically an Excel spreadsheet where block, every tree space was a cell. And where we had trees, we had a square or a cross. So it was easy to either mark the trees red or green. And the interesting thing as we began the survey was, how do we classify the damage? And it took us not very long, actually. We went down the first couple of rows, looking at the amount of burned foliage, looking at limbs, looking at the strength of the tree, and quickly realized that the best way to judge the damage was to observe the sap oozing out of the bark. This was done probably 6 to 8 weeks after the fire, and even with the rains that we had after the fire, the sap oozing was pretty evident, so it was easy to tell the significance of the size of the damage to the cambium layer, and how much of the cambium layer was actually dead and would never regrow and never be part of the tree again. So the criterion became first to look all around the trunk, and any trunk that had sap oozing out of it was marked red, because that tree would never be forward producing again. A number of the trees had damage not on the trunk, but only on the major limbs coming off the trunk. And in that case, if only one limb had some damage underneath, we knew that limb could be cut off later as it rotted away, and the tree would replace it and become productive. So the only trees that were marked red were those that had either significant trunk damage or damage to multiple of the primary limbs. So the criterion became fairly easy, and the sap was really easy to see oozing out, because that became an easy marker, because sometimes the bark was charred, sometimes the heat was enough to kill the cambium layer without even marking the trunk, marking the bark. So these are the maps that we came up with. They became sort of our best friend, and out of that, then we produced by block the damage to the blocks, and if the maps weren't easy enough to tell, the charts told us which blocks needed reproducing or needed replacing. And later, as we got into it, we actually even broke these down by irrigation valves, so that we could leave the irrigation valves with higher percentage of healthy trees. Next, please. So even though we knew we were in a difficult position financially, we took a moment to look at where we were, knowing that any tree we planted would likely be in the ground for 50, 60, 70 years. So we were making judgments in sort of a triage situation, but also knowing that the decisions we made would have impacts for decades. So we looked at what we were growing, and should we replant avocados? Should we replant with lemons? We talked about wine grapes. We even talked about persimmons. And in the end, the financial constraints dictated avocados. Then, having this orchard originally planted on Mexican seedling, we took a really good look at rootstocks. We listened to the nursery. We had some areas with tough soil that we had root rot or phytophthora-like symptoms. So in the end, for rootstock, we have replanted primarily Dusa, one block because we could get the trees in the year following the fire. We planted to Duke 7. And then we had the variety discussion, and that one was probably the shortest discussion in that we knew what Hass could do. We had the history, and we needed trees that would produce, that we knew could produce strong, healthy crops. The last discussion, how we replanted the trees, goes back to Gerardo's comments, and that's where we had extensive discussions. And fortunately, my sister had purchased a ranch with 5 plantable acres in 2013, I think, and by 2015, we had replanted it with a range of densities. So unfortunately, we didn't, it wasn't far enough along to really guide us, but it gave us some experience with densities. In the orchard, originally, we were quite happy with the 20 by 20 plantings that were originally done. We had a history of production of over 12,000 pounds an acre over a number of years. So we knew that in that climate with that soil, that was a good density. We looked at, for most of the orchard, the consideration that at a higher density, as Gerardo said, we would get more production earlier. And as we did our financial analysis and our financial projections, that played into our thinking. And so in the end, we went back with a 20 by 20 planting and basically put a tree in the middle of the 20 by 20 square. Except in one block where we had very high density because we had very high wind situation, and we chose to make that our experimental plot. So this is a layout of what we planted on my sister's ranch, always with the plan that in each of the 10 blocks we could get back to 20 by 20 or 20 by 15 diamond. So we planted each of the 10 blocks, 2 blocks with each density, starting with in the top left corner, what a density we thought we could live with sort of permanently and not a particularly high density, to the bottom ones down by the house, which are probably pretty ridiculous density, and where we have actually struggled with pruning and are learning pruning at a rapid rate. So in the end, this is what we decided to do, which is the original rows are 20 feet apart. The trees are 20 feet apart in them. And then in the middle of the square, we planted what we call our alternate rows. So the drive rows are 80 feet apart. There's 4 primary rows, 20 feet apart, and then in between 3 sort of alternate rows. The replanting was driven by the consideration that there wasn't the time or financial resources to replace all the irrigation system, replace the laterals. So the lateral spacing at 20 feet pretty much dictated how we replanted. The other problem we have is, or the other challenge we have is that the soil is very rocky, probably even 50% by volume rock. So it wasn't just a matter of getting a D6 up and pushing the trees out, grinding them and spreading the grindings and then replanting wherever we wanted. We would have ended up with giant holes and only basically rocks to put back in them. So in the end, we cut the trees to the ground, ground the stumps sort of a little below the ground so they weren't trip strips for the 20 years it takes them to rot off. And we replanted in between the trees, the old tree stumps, as much as we could. As we laid out the new trees, we found that the rows weren't always straight and the spacing wasn't always consistent, and it was an interesting process. As I said, in one block, which was exposed to the east wind and we knew it was going to be a challenge, we took it as an opportunity to try high density with the idea of keeping the trees sort of 8 to 10 feet high and keeping the orchard fairly dense so they could protect each other. And in that case, we doubled the density. So between every of the standard plantings, we put in another tree. Always with the goal, or in the back of our mind, knowing we could get back to the 20 by 20 spacing by removing trees. So next slide. So our initial replanting amounted to 42 acres of the blocks that were, or even the valves that were where 60 to 80% of the trees had suffered damage in the fire. Block 11 up on the left is our wind exposed one, and that is our experimental high density. It's the one we drive by every day, so we look at it every day. Don't forget about it. Don't forget it needs pruning. The picture up on the left is an example of what it looked like after we cut the trees down, fed them through the chipper, laid out the new trees, and dug the holes, cleared the chips around the holes so that we had clean soil to plant the trees. And then the pictures below, as Consuelo said, it takes a team, and that's our team on the right planting the first trees. And our team on the left with tree number 1 after 1 year. And this is a picture. The first plantings were up on the right, which were planted in October, November of 18. The plantings right in front were planted in June of 2019. And you can see the drive rows and then what we've come to call our sub blocks. And yes, the other, as Ben Faber likes to say, that mutual water companies are the biggest impediment to growing avocados, particularly in Ventura County, and the ability to irrigate at your choice or when the trees need, not when it's your time on the schedule. So our original water system involves a well down by the highway that pumps up to a booster at the bottom of the ranch. And then in the middle of the ranch, we have a second booster. So for the first 40 years of the life of the ranch, we irrigated exactly what the well was producing. And we adjusted our irrigation sets to suit the amount of water the well was producing. Before the fire, we'd started a project to change that to add storage so that we had more flexibility and we weren't turning off individual risers to balance the pressure. Up in the upper right-hand corner above the pointer, you will see the tank, we had fortunate sort of topography. So we had a spot where we could simply slide the tank up until we had the right pressures to supply the bottom of the ranch and the booster for the top of the ranch. So it actually works almost like a standpipe. We put in a 900,000 gallon tank, and it has transformed how we irrigate and how we fertilize. Now when we had all mature trees and the fertilization, the irrigation was pretty consistent over the whole ranch. It was fairly straightforward. Now we start replanting with young trees that need different fertilization, different irrigation times, frequencies from the older trees, sometimes in the same block, just with different irrigation valves. The ability to now just literally turn on and off the water as needed, to put the fertilization in. Some of our, on the young trees, we've been adding nitrogen weekly. It's completely changed our ability to manage the trees and to properly irrigate and fertilize. In 2020, Labor Day weekend, we had temperatures on Saturday and Sunday during the day of 112, 114. And over Saturday night, it never got below 90. We had irrigated the new trees Friday, and Saturday afternoon, we toured around and the trees looked fine, almost no wilting. I thought, we got this, we're in good shape. Came back Sunday, and by 10 o'clock Sunday morning, they were all the new growth was wilted, and the old leaves were beginning to wilt. The tank wasn't fully operational. We were still putting in the pipeline. So we ended up doing the valve dance, where we opened and closed valves, just sort of balancing pressure or not balancing pressure, trying not to blow up pipelines. And basically, over the course of the day, we added 2 to 2.5 hours of irrigation on all the young trees. Within an hour of putting the water on, and this was drippers, the trees were standing back up, unwilted, and this was in 110-degree heat. So the ability, I'm convinced that the ability to put water on, even if you get, I mean, we weren't behind. We had fully irrigated them on Friday, and by Sunday morning they were in trouble. Just a little bit of water kept that new growth from being fried in the heat. We had almost no leaf damage. The older trees, being stronger and have more resources, by Sunday afternoon they were looking sad, and by Monday morning we danced around and got water on those. So our takeaway from that is that the ability to choose when and how much you irrigate is key to especially young trees, but probably very important to production in older trees. And yeah, and I would like to give a little shout out to NRCS. It was a long process working with them, getting all the application materials in, getting everything they needed. But they were a key component in allowing us and giving us the financial resources to support to do both the tank and the pipeline. So it's a government agency. It's not the easiest in the world to deal with, but persistence and patience will pay off. They are very helpful, and they do have funds for irrigation improvement projects, and I'd highly recommend them. So while I would hope that none of you ever go through a fire, I hope that our experience can help a little bit should you do so. But if you do, talk to people who've been through it and don't underestimate the damage to your trees. So with that, I'll have a look and see the questions. Oh yeah, you wanted to. Yeah, Leah, can you do we've started a time-lapse project. Rachel's husband is a photographer and set up a time-lapse camera. So we have a time-lapse video from the first 3 years.
Yep, here it comes.
Thank you, Leah. Let's see. Have any questions? We're using, we started the trees on button drippers with one dripper on the tree ball and one out 18 inches on either side. And then after the first year on the primary line, 4 primary rows, we added sprinklers. And because it's a diamond shape, and thank you again for the endorsement, Gerardo, the alternate tree rows get irrigated by the sprinklers on the other side. So, since that's the only question, I'll also add a little experience we had. Originally, when we planted, we put one dripper in on the ball. And so we had very, very low flows. And about 6 weeks after planting, we had trees at the ends of the rows just dying, just collapsing. We had no idea why. Dan Grant from Brokaw Nursery came and he said, "Oh, it looks to me like you got fertilizer burn." So we assumed that because the flows were really low, that somehow we weren't getting good mixing and good distribution, and somehow the fertilizer was ending up at the ends of the rows. So we said, okay, we know we need to add drippers as the trees get big. So we added the second and third dripper to up the flow rates. And that seemed to cure the problem. And he said, don't worry, those trees will come back right away, because if it's fertilizer burn, they'll recover, and with all that nutrition, they'll jump right back. Well, they didn't jump right back. And a couple of years later, Dan said, I was down in San Diego and had an experience where we measured the water temperature in the hoses at the end of the hose on a low flow drip. And it was like 110 degrees. And he said, we're pretty sure that what happened down there, where they had the same sort of tree failure, was actually scorching the roots of the new trees. And I think that's what we had here too, because even those trees that didn't die, that were knocked back by that, are behind the other trees regrowing. So it is something to be aware of. If you do use button drippers and you have really low flow, when those hoses stay full of water and get hot in the summer, and then that you start an irrigation, push it all to the end, you can actually scald your tree roots. So it's one of those weird experiences with new trees. So let's see. Okay. No other questions? I'll turn it back to Leah.
Great. Gordon, this is Leah. Thank you for sharing this information with us. It's hopefully, as you said, none of us will have to go through this. I've worked with a number of growers that have gone through fire, and I know how painful it is to every time you look at these pictures. So thank you for helping us understand each fire is different. Sometimes it goes so fast the trees come back okay, and sometimes the trees will never come back. And thank you for sharing this information. It's amazing the progress you've made. I'm very impressed. So thanks again. And with that, I want to thank everyone for being here today. Next year, we're hoping to have the annual meeting in person. Even though we love having these meetings via video, because more people around the world can share with us. The Avocado Society is also a social organization. We need to get together at least once a year and say hi to each other. And next year's meeting will be in the South. So plan on taking a vacation. Come down, visit Temecula, Fallbrook. We'll show you a good time. So again, thank you. If you have any questions that you did not get to ask earlier, all the speakers are going to stay online, and just go ahead and use the Q&A. You may have to reapply the questions because they've gotten out of order. And number two, if you have any suggestions on how to make these meetings better, my email address is on the website of CaliforniaAvocadoSociety.org. That is now stuck in your head. It's an earworm. It's like going to It's a Small World. So thank you again, and have a great one. Gerardo, you want to start with the first questions?
Okay. Let me see. Is there a question? I
just saw you come up first. Well, I'll kick off the first question. Do you think that the high density of in English, 7 feet by 14 feet for a house is possible in California without plant growth regulators such as Sunny and the other products that we do not have access to here?
Yeah. What was the, sorry, what was the spacing? 7 feet? Or
yeah, 7 by 14.
7 feet by 14 feet.
I've seen it very successful on gems, but I'm a little concerned about Hass because they're so aggressive.
Mm-hmm. So far, I've seen Leo in California. I have been working with that grower for more than 8 years. He has we made three trials: 10 by 10, 12 by 10 by 10 feet, 12 by 12 feet, 15 by 15 feet. Okay, has avocado. Okay, has avocado. So far, I will say he's really doing a good job in 12 by 12. Okay, I'll if I told you before, I think we could using pruning and girdling, we could enjoy 7 by 14. Yes, and I can see like the I call light safe I can see I can remove every second tree, and finally the spacing will be 14 by 14. Yes, I will say yes. I will say yes, but really intensive work, really very, very intensive. Okay.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Mhm.
Consuelo, do you see any questions on there that interest you?
I can't see any,
Okay,
but I do agree with Gerardo's answer on the spacing. I think it is something viable that can be done.
excellent. It's fascinating. I love seeing it. Great. Well, I think, Mark, you covered all your questions. So gang, again, I appreciate you helping us today. I appreciate your time. And we will hopefully all see each other soon.